Chapter 986. Of course I have my ways to restrain him. Zhou Xian laughed disdainfully as if victory was already in his hands. Kong Teichu will obediently give up Sidoni and Tianqing school. The Zhou family is best at subduing enemies without a fight. Moreover, we have the support of Heavenly Star Small World in the future. Oh, Mr. Jin, are you that confident? Lady Wu still had a smile on her face, but she shook her head disdainfully in her heart. You think too highly of Kong Teichu. He dominated the world and suppressed the superpowers of the world. Even if your Zhou family was at its peak, could you have achieved such an achievement? At this moment his cell phone rang. It was Nalan Li. Zhou Xian said calmly. Look, the Nalan family has called. They must have already taken down Kong Teichu. Zhou Xian laughed and answered the phone. Mr. Jin, the negotiations have reached a conclusion and we have arrived in Zhonghai. We would like to report to you in person. Oh, I'm at the Moon in the Sky building. Lady Wu is also there. Let's listen together. Zhou Xian wanted to show off in front of Lady Wu. I think it's better if I report to you alone. Nalan Li seemed to hesitate for a moment. They're not outsiders. It doesn't matter. Zhou Xian was full of confidence and laughed casually. After hanging up the phone, Zhou Xian's blood was boiling. He laughed and said, Demonis, if we use Sidoni as our base, we should have a 100% chance of dominating the world with reclusive royalty, right? What kind of power would the 9 great royal families have gathered together? He sipped his tea and said proudly, If I take down Sidoni, you will live under my roof, respect me as your master and call me the human emperor. Isn't that what you should do? The so-called human emperor was the emperor of the East, the emperor of reclusive royalty. It could be said that he was the emperor of emperors, the supreme being. Even the reclusive royalty of Wuxia and the dragon protector clan had to listen to him and not disobey him in the slightest. You call yourself the human sovereign? You need the emperor's decree. The martial demon lady was unmoved and mocked him. As far as I know, the human emperor's token has been taken away by the dimensional world. Your Jin family doesn't have it either. I'll get the human emperor's decree sooner or later. Zhou Xian's eyes flashed with a trace of heat. His gaze was firm as he clenched his fists and snorted coldly. I've taken down Sidoni and suppressed the entire world. Naturally, my contributions are the highest. Would the immortals give the human emperor's token to others? They were talking. Greetings, Prince Jin. Greetings, Patriarch Wu. Nalan Li and his 2 brothers hurried in and bowed respectfully to Zhou Xian and Lady Wu, as if they were servants meeting their masters. After all, they were only members of the Dragon Protector clan. There was still a big gap between their status and that of the royal family. Tell me, what's the situation? Zhou Xian gently waved his folding fan and said calmly, Kong Teichu must be flattered and grateful to cooperate with the reclusive royalty. Kong Teichu refused. Nalan Li hesitated for a moment with an embarrassed expression. Then he spoke with difficulty, his voice trembling and interfering. What? He refused. Zhou Xian couldn't believe it. Then he became furious and suddenly slammed the table. The antique sandalwood table immediately shattered. Old Jin, my table. The antique I bought for millions of yuan is priceless. You have to compensate me. Lady Wu screamed exaggeratedly, but she wasn't surprised at all. Zhou Xian stood up and paced back and forth like a manic lion. He trembled all over and said, Kong Teichu actually dared to refuse me? Isn't he afraid of my thunderous anger? This guy is very arrogant. He said that the reclusive royalty's luck is already broken and his strength is too weak. He still dares to call himself an immortal. What the hell? On the side, Nalan too fanned the flames and said, Prince, look, he even cut off my arms. They've just been reattached. I don't know if they'll be healed. He pretended to be upset and complained with a bitter face, feeling extremely wronged. He even forced our Nalan clan to worship him as our leader. Otherwise, he'll exterminate our Nalan family. What? Zhou Xian couldn't believe it. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. He sneered and said, Your Nalan family is the dignified dragon guardian tribe. Now you're worshipping him. Is Kong Teichu a true dragon? Is he the son of heaven? His handsome face was ashen and gloomy. He said disdainfully, He's just a mortal who controls a small piece of land and has a few Kunlun slaves as his people. How dare he call himself an immortal and a king in the south? He really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Ridiculous. Humph, if it weren't for the reclusive royalty, the Holy See and Brahmin would have marched straight into the Great Orthodoxy War. Kong Techu would have been cut into pieces. Our reclusive royalty has helped him so much. Now he's unwilling to give up some benefits. He's narrow-minded and won't be able to achieve anything. What the hell is he? It seems that your Jin family didn't do anything to resist the Holy See and Brahmin. The martial demon lady cursed in her heart, but she didn't say anything. Isn't that so? Nalan Li sneered in his heart and echoed. Cooperating with the reclusive royalty is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's also Kong Techu's glory. The royal family has a place to show off their strength, and the Tianqing school's power will also grow. It's the best of both worlds. But he's useless. Lady Wu, you've seen how arrogant Kong Techu is. He's shameless. Zhou Xian's face was ashen, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He swung his sleeves and sneered, "Why should we support him with the reclusive royalty? He's trying to get cold feet. Withdraw your troops." Lady Wu still wanted to make peace. Originally, the Wu family didn't take action because of Kong Techu, but for the sake of national righteousness. But at this moment her cell phone suddenly rang. Lady Wu answered a few words and her face suddenly changed. Then she hung up the phone and said with a wry smile, "Alas, it's impossible to send troops now." "What's wrong?" Zhou Xian asked. Thousands of masters gathered by the Holy See and Brahmin broke through the warriors' defense line at the southwest border. "We can't hold on any longer," Lady Wu said with a pale face. Good. Zhou Xian wasn't shocked but happy. He gloated, "Kong Techu is now in Wuxia. I'd like to see how Kong Techu can resist these tigers and wolves." "Then Kong Techu?" Nalan Li asked. "Tomorrow I'll go and meet him. I'd like to see how tough Kong Techu can be." Zhou Xian snorted with a fierce look. "I'll trample on him and let him know who's the ant. Who's the true son of heaven? Who's the master of the strong in Wuxia?" "Prince Jin, you must be careful." Lady Wu's face changed. She put on her shoes and got off the sofa. She stood up and said seriously, "I heard that Kong Techu is arrogant and unruly. He's fierce and difficult to provoke. Don't provoke Kong Techu's anger. The enemy is right in front of us. We haven't killed many of them but we're already in chaos. I have my own decision. What did his anger amount to? He can't even withstand a single blow from me. He can only kneel and beg for mercy." Jin Zishuan's eyes were filled with arrogance as he snorted coldly. He was completely unmoved as he swaggered off. Who was he? He was the descendant of the Aizen family. He was the crown prince and the future head of the family. He had connections with the stellar sky domain. No matter how strong Kong Techu was, he was just a commoner. How could he compare to the original royal family? "Wu family head, I'll take my leave." As for Nalan Li and the other two, they followed after him. A smile of schadenfreude appeared at the corners of their mouths. They were so happy that the muscles on their faces were twitching crazily. "Hehe, our Nalan family can't deal with you. I don't believe that Zhou Xian can't suppress you. They have 3 earth immortals. They are the authentic reclusive royalty. They have a strong foundation. These 3 are Kong Techu. Oh Kong Techu. Even if you have cultivation, you've just recovered from your serious injuries. I'm afraid you're not at your peak. At most, you're in the human immortal realm. How could you be a match for 3 earth immortals?" What's more, Zhou Xian was the deputy head of the Reclusive Royalty Alliance. He could mobilize more forces. "Ah Jiangtian, oh Jiangtian, you're surrounded by enemies. The Holy See, the Brahmin and Huaxia's reclusive royalty. Who could withstand it? Your time of death has come." Nalan Li and the other 2 brothers didn't say a word. However, deep in their eyes, there was a sharp and cold killing intent. "How dare you slap my face? How dare you trample on the dragon protection lineage? This time I'll make you regret it. I'll make you cry and kneel before me. Then I'll cut you into pieces and put you to death." Chapter 987. He couldn't bear Nalan Bo's humble pleading. The next morning, Jiang Tian restored Nalan Jun's memory and took out the soul-devouring avatar. Nalan Bo promised again and again that the Nalan family would never offend Jiang Tian again. They would respect Jiang Tian in the future. After Nalan Li and his brothers came back, they seemed very calm. They didn't show off in front of Zhang Tian. Instead, they were more respectful to Zhang Tian and waited for Zhou Xian to come and suppress Zhang Tian. Narenqing has secretly found Zhang Tian and said with a serious face, Zhang Tian, Zhou Xian is likely to come and talk to you face to face. He might even attack you. You'd better leave. Zhou family was very powerful. It was said that they had earth immortals and powerful people. Who would dare to provoke them? They also had a place in the reclusive royalty alliance. Even if Zhang Tian was a celestial immortal, he would probably be crushed by them. Although the Tianqing school had a lot of people, the Holy See and the Brahmin were too much for him to deal with. Let's talk. Why should I leave? Zhang Tian was sketching the 9 dragons' spirit guiding array on the map. He didn't even raise his head. He didn't care about this at all. I tried to persuade you, but you didn't listen. If you want to die, then go to hell. Narenqing couldn't help but be disappointed with Zhang Tian. Her eyes were cold as she muttered softly. He didn't know how to hide his strength and avoid the sharp edge. No matter how strong he was, he would fall sooner or later. Do you know that if others talked to me like this, they would have died several times? Zhang Tian raised his eyebrows. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Narenqing. You want to kill me? Why don't you know how to be kind? Narenqing was so scared that she stumbled back. However, in the end, Zhang Tian shook his head and chuckled. Forget it. I won't kill you on account of your kindness. I have good intentions, but you want to kill me. It seems that I shouldn't be on your side. Narenqing is full of resentment. She turns around and leaves, leaving Zhang Tian alone in the study to draw the outline of the formation. Zhang Tian quickly finished drawing the 9 dragons guiding soul array. At this time, Yi Tianren suddenly contacted Zhang Tian to report the situation. Originally, they had planned to lure the enemy deep into the Kuelian territory and use the medium-sized Kuelian to kill the invaders. However, he did not expect the Ying family, Zhu family, Li family, Wu family and other families to join the battle. Moreover, they didn't listen to orders and went their own way. Their attempts to lure the enemy were interrupted several times. What kind of trouble do you think you're going to cause? Zhang Tian was so angry that his eyebrows twitched. He snorted and said, Announce that Tianqing school doesn't need their help. Tell them to get lost. Yes, Master. Yi Tianren received the order and immediately issued the announcement. He also asked Cao Shixiang to mediate and get the reclusive royalty people to withdraw from the battlefield. The formation is completed. What we lack now is 9 spiritual energy revival seeds. The Brahmin and the Holy See should have a teleportation formation that leads to West Earth and the Heavenly Kingdom. The divine light in Zhang Tian's eyes was extinguished, shooting out like swords. He couldn't wait to slaughter the Holy See and the Brahmin, kill his way to the Heavenly Kingdom and the West Earth, and find the spiritual energy revival seeds. However, the Qingming festival was coming soon. Zhang Tian also wanted to fulfill Qing'er's wish, so he was not in a hurry. Zhang Tian and Nalan Bo organized the ceremony for the return of Nalan Iran's ashes. However, Narenqing was no longer willing to pay attention to Zhang Tian. Every time she saw him, she would stay far away from him. Soon the Qingming festival arrived. In the western suburbs of Wuxia on a desolate mountain, the sky was covered with dark clouds and drizzling. Zhang Tian, who was dressed in black, held a large black umbrella and stood behind Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing, who was dressed in a black dress, looked at the picture of the beautiful woman on the tombstone. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she sobbed. Mom, I've grown up. I'm married and I'm pregnant. My husband's name is Zhang Tian. He's very powerful. He's the most powerful person in the entire world. He loves me very much. Don't worry, no one can hurt me anymore. I'm sorry. I'm unfilial. I haven't come to see you all these years. At that moment she was in a trance. It was as if the gentle woman in the picture was smiling at her. It was as if she was telling her that she had never regretted her choice to give birth to Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing tearfully offered a wreath and offerings. She said gently, Mom, we're here to bring you home. Zhao Qianru instructed a few workers to open the tomb and take out the urn. Zhao Xueqing hugged it tightly in her arms and rushed to the Nalan family's cemetery. The Nalan family's cemetery was located on a hillside in the northern suburbs of Wuxia. It was a good location to hide the wind and gather water. It occupied an area of about 100 acres. At that moment in the cemetery, it was filled with the direct and collateral descendants. Everyone was dressed in black and had solemn expressions. Even the injured Nalan too was present, even though he was in a wheelchair. However, his expression was a little gloomy. Dad, almost everyone is here. Qing'er and Jiangtian are here too. Nalan Li stepped forward and said. Good. Nalan Bo nodded and stepped forward with a walking stick. He scanned the crowd and said, Today I have 2 things to announce. First, from today onwards, Iran's ashes will be moved to the family cemetery. The memorial tablet will be returned to the family ancestral hall. He looked at Zhou Xian apologetically and said, Qing'er, back then because of my conservative thinking I didn't publicly acknowledge you. I've made you suffer and I've also made your mother suffer. No matter what, the blood that flows in your veins is the blood of my Nalan family. Today, grandfather apologizes to you and your mother. As he spoke, he bowed deeply to Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian quickly stepped forward to support him. She said sadly, It's all in the past. Grandpa, please don't take it to heart. In the end, people have to look forward. I'm old. As the saying goes, one can only know one's destiny at 50. I have a rough idea of how long I can live. Nalan Bo straightened up and scanned the crowd. He said in a loud voice, I won't live long. I don't have long to live. The Nalan family needs a suitable leader to rebuild the family's glory. As soon as he said this, everyone's face changed. Nalan Li's face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. He couldn't believe it. Originally, Nalan Li was the head of the family. Nalan Bo's words were obviously trying to deprive him of the position. The second thing I want to announce is that from today onwards, Zhou Xian will be the head of the Nalan family. Nalan Li has another appointment. As soon as he said this, the crowd was in an uproar. Father, how can you do this? I don't accept this. Nalan Li was as if he was struck by lightning. His face turned ashen and then red as he shouted angrily. Father, she's still young. Can she take on such a big responsibility? Li Roshi glared viciously at Zhou Xian and screamed threateningly. Zhou Xian, do you dare to take on this position? I'm afraid you won't be able to hold it. Father, if you're so biased towards this evil creature, we'll leave the Nalan family immediately. We'll break off our relationship. Nalan Tu's face was full of jealousy. His gaze shot towards Zhou Xian like an arrow and said coldly, Tianqing School and Jiangtian are enemies on all sides. They're going to be finished soon. Now that you're tied to them, you're digging your own grave. A married person is like water that has been poured out. She's just a granddaughter. How can she take on such a heavy responsibility? Nalan Qinghe was so angry that she almost went crazy. She didn't care about her bearing and danced with joy as she shouted hysterically. Originally, they didn't want to fall out with Jiang Tian and his wife. They were quite afraid. But at this moment, when it came to their fundamental interests, they couldn't stand it anymore. Zhou Xian was also shocked. She quickly said, Grandfather, my ability is limited. I'm afraid I don't have the energy and time to manage the Nalan family. One of Nalan Bo's clan brothers stepped forward and said earnestly, Brother, our Nalan family has never had a precedent of a woman taking on the role of the head of the family. It's definitely not a good thing for a hen to take over the morning. What era are we living in? Women can hold up half the sky. I think Qing'er's ability is much stronger than yours and mine. Nalan Bo didn't pay attention to his clan brother's suggestion. His gaze swept across the crowd and said coldly, This is my decision. If any of you want to quit, quit immediately. Without you unfilial sons, the Nalan family would be better off. The old man exploded in anger. Nalan Li and the others looked bitter and didn't dare to speak. Moreover, they knew that Zhou Xian was already on the way and would be here soon. And once Zhou Xian arrives, Jiang Tian, just wait to be crushed to death, just wait to be dismembered into 1,000 pieces. I'll let you be happy for 3 minutes. So what? Nalan Qinghe was the only one who spoke in a loud voice. I object. She's an ominous person, a demon who will bring disaster to our Nalan family. Slap. Jiang Tian made a move and slapped her to the ground. His eyes were cold as he said, You dare to scold my wife? You want to die. You think I don't dare to kill you? Chapter 988. You dare to hit me? You dare to threaten me? Grandpa. Nalan Qinghe's mouth was bleeding and her face was blooming. She looked at Nalan Bo pleadingly and shouted. However, Nalan Bo ignored her and looked at Zhou Xian with hope. Qinghe, If these people from the Nalan family were useful, I wouldn't ask you for help. However, they are too disappointing. In the long run, the Nalan family will be destroyed in their hands. Grandpa, Zhou Xian's heart was in a dilemma. She didn't want her relationship with the Nalan family to be so stiff. If she stole her uncle's position, she was afraid that everyone would hate her. More importantly, she was now the mother of Sidoni, the female master of a peerless sect and one of the top beauties in the world. Her position was supreme and her authority was unparalleled. How could she care about the small family business of the Nalan family? Seeing Zhou Xian looking at him with difficulty, Jiang Tian said lightly, "Grandpa Qinger is pregnant. I'm afraid she doesn't have time to be the head of the family." If she reluctantly agreed, "I'm afraid she doesn't have much energy to manage it." Hearing this, Nalan Bo's face stiffened. The disappointment in his heart was beyond words. Nalan Li and the other trash didn't know when to stop. They repeatedly offended Jiang Tian. It would be strange if Jiang Tian and Qinger didn't have any feelings. It seemed that they couldn't hold on to this thigh. Then Jiang Tian changed the topic and said, "But Qinger is also indebted to you. We won't forget. In the future, if the Nalan family is in trouble, I will lend a helping hand." Good. With Jiang Tian's words, I'm relieved. Nalan Bo laughed heartily, his old heart was comforted. At this moment, a sneer full of contempt and arrogance was heard. "Is it up to you, Nalan Bo, to decide who will be the head of the Dragon Protector tribe?" He was escorted by the old state preceptor and a few of his companions. Zhou Xian was dressed in a long black robe. He was handsome and elegant. His face was gloomy as he slowly walked up the stairs. Zhou Xian stared at Nalan Bo. However, the old imperial preceptor's eyes were like lightning as he stared at Jiang Tian with murderous intent. Zhou Xian hadn't realized that Zhou Xian was looking for trouble. She shouted in surprise, "Uncle Jin, why are you here?" She had a good impression of Zhou Xian. Back then, he had taken care of her mother with great care. Could be said that he was very affectionate. "Naturally, I'm here to kill you," Nalan Li shouted. Naranqinghe got up and smiled proudly. "Kong Teichu, I asked you to get out but you didn't. You even dared to hit me. Reclusive royalty is coming. I'd like to see how you can withstand the wrath of the true dragon." The others also had gloating expressions on their faces. Reclusive royalty didn't cultivate martial arts or spells. It was the emperor art from the dimensional space. It was a cultivation art. Jiang Tian was just an ant from the earth world. How could he be a match for it? Nalan Bo took a step forward and cupped his fists in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. "Mr. Jin, the Nalan family has been suppressing the dragon vein for 300 years. We have done our best to fulfill our duties. Even if your Aizen family has done us a great favor, our Nalan family should have repaid it, right? Sinner, you want to die? The ancestral family rules are passed down forever. It's not something you can change just because you want to. Nalan Bo, you can either be a slave for the rest of your life and obey the orders of the Aizen family, or die." Zhou Xian's tone was like a glacier. It was arrogant, cold, and harsh. "How many years has it been since the fall of the Qing dynasty? Your ancestors were muddle-headed and incompetent. They humiliated the country and caused Wuxia to fall into eternal damnation." Jiang Tian laughed and took a step forward. He looked at Zhou Xian with a face full of sarcasm and sneered, "Now you're talking about your ancestors and putting on airs. You're calling yourself a king in the south. You're shameless. I've never seen such a shameless person. You're Kong Teichu." Zhou Xian's expression was cold as he stared at Jiang Tiandao with murderous intent in his eyes. "That's right." Jiang Tian nodded. "You're really arrogant." Zhou Xian laughed instead of getting angry. He looked at Jiang Tian and said, "You refused to cooperate with me on reclusive royalty? I refused you, Zhou Xian. I have no problem with cooperating with reclusive royalty, but you have to listen to my orders." Jiang Tian smiled faintly. "But you, Zhou Xian, want to snatch Kong Teichu's dojo? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child?" Zhou Xian's eyes flashed with anger. He said coldly, "Kong Teichu, do you know that you're in big trouble now? You're fierce and murderous. You've caused bloodshed and made people angry. The Holy See and the Brahmin want to kill you. So what?" Jiang Tian swung his sleeves and sneered. "I've never said that I'm a good person. However, I'm still better than your Aizenjoro's ancestors who were humiliated by foreign enemies and had to beg for mercy like a pet dog. Their lives were ruined and the people had no way to make a living. The foreigners are happy but the people are in trouble. To Europe, America, and Japan I want to be a lion and a fierce tiger. But I'm better than your ancestors who were like docile sheep waiting to be slaughtered. I'm paying reclusive royalty to stop the Holy See and the Brahmin for you. That's your attitude. Zhou Xian was furious and shouted. Do you know that we've been cleaning up after you, Kong Teichu? If it weren't for us, Kong Teichu would have been slaughtered. Like a noble descendant of the heavens, he spoke loftily. Do you think I want to care about you? I'm only helping you because of Qing'er's mother. He looked down at Jiang Tian as if he was looking down at an ant, his face full of disdain as he snorted coldly. Now, if you agree to my original request, I'll use the reclusive royalty to help you get rid of this disaster. This is my ultimatum and also your last chance. Don't make a mistake. Zhou Xian, what do I have to do with your reclusive royalty? Do I need your help? You think too highly of yourself. It would have been better if he didn't mention this. Now that he did, Jiang Tian was a little angry. Tianqing School has already announced that we don't need your help. Are you deaf? Originally, Tianqing School and Huaxiaolong Formation had already arrived at the southwest border with the mobile Kuelian. They had opened their pockets, waiting for the Holy See and Brahmin to enter and blast them to ashes. However, the reclusive royalty went there to stop them. Tianqing School and Huaxiaolong Formation waited for a long time, but to no avail. After all, the reclusive royalty and them were locked in a fierce battle. You can't kill the reclusive royalty along with them. After all, they were also from Wuxia. Kongti, I'll give you one last chance. Seeing that Jiang Tian was stubborn, Zhou Xian was so angry that his face turned ashen. He trembled all over and shouted loudly. Kneel down and kowtow to me immediately. Otherwise, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Haha, make me kneel. You're courting death. Jiang Tian snorted coldly. He extended his jade-white palm and slapped down leisurely. Boom. Within a 3-kilometer radius, the world shook. A golden true essence palm of 7th metal suddenly fell. The golden giant palm pressed down on Zhou Xian like a mountain, trying to make him kneel. How dare you? Zhou Xian let out a tiger-like roar. His robe began to billow and imperial qi began to emanate from him. A black dragon-like aura began to appear behind his back. It traveled along his spine and rushed to the top of his head, as if it wanted to soar up into the sky. He used to practice the Black Dragon Emperor art, which came from the Tianqing boundary and was also a cultivation art. In addition, he was half an immortal state warrior and his combat power was not much weaker than an ordinary earth-level deity. That was why he dared to provoke Jiang Tian so recklessly. Black Dragon out. Open. He shouted. The Black Dragon Emperor Qi surged and became more than 10 meters tall, trying to break through the restriction formation. But what was unexpected was that the Black Dragon Emperor Qi only lasted for half a second before it was shattered together with the astral wind. Immediately after, an unstoppable force descended from the sky. The golden giant palm crushed the Black Dragon Emperor Qi effortlessly. With a bang he fell to the ground and kowtowed. Zhou Xian was defeated with one palm. How is that possible? The people of the Nalan family were shocked. The Jin clan and many other royal clans cultivated the regent art. Even if Zhou Xian was facing an earthly immortal realm expert, he would still be able to deal with them easily. But now he was actually suppressed by Jiang Tian with a single strike. Kong Teichu, how dare you force me to kneel? Zhou Xian couldn't accept it and shouted angrily. Zhou Xian was a member of the royal family and had a noble bloodline. But now he was forced to kneel by Jiang Tian. This was a great humiliation. It was worse than killing him. Peasant, I dare you to call me that again. Jiang Tian pulled him up. Smack. Blood spurted out from the corner of his mouth and a few of his teeth flew out. Kongti, kill me if you have the guts. Otherwise the Aizenjoro family will kill you. Zhou Xian shouted angrily. Do you think I won't kill you? As you wish. Jiang Tian's purple eyes flashed and he was about to kill him. Chapter 989. Jiang Tian, forget it. Zhao Xueqing couldn't stand it anymore. She stepped forward and said, no matter what, he has taken care of my mother. Humph. Reclusive royalty? Crown prince? He's just an ant that I can crush with ease. I'll give you one last chance. Don't be so reckless. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and shook his right arm. Zhou Xian fell behind the Grand Master like a dead dog. The white-haired old man helped Zhou Xian up and then slowly approached Jiang Tian. Cultivator, you are indeed arrogant. Today let me see what you can do. Jiang Tian said coldly, the last Grand Master of the Qing dynasty, the former sect master of the Kongtong sect, Fan Qilong. That's me. The old Grand Master didn't stop as his murderous aura surged. I heard that you were more powerful than Situ Shao in the late Qing dynasty. You have mastered the snake saliva wind-chasing claw. You reached the immortal state in your 30s and were known as the most powerful cultivator in Wuxia. Now that you are 300 years old, you should be an earth-level deity. Jiang Tian asked again. My past glory is not worth mentioning. Fan Qilong's voice was hoarse, but his murderous aura was still thick. You're quite modest. Jiang Tian said with a smile. I don't want to mention my past glory because I want to return to the Jianghu and kill you, the most powerful cultivator in the world. I want to defeat the Holy See and Brahman and return to the top of this planet. Fan Qilong continued to walk forward. His eyes were cold and his crooked fingernails trembled slightly. Ah, forget it, old man. I don't want to fight with you. You are 300 years old and your blood is drying up. Even if I don't kill you, you won't live for long. Jiang Tian mocked. Kill him, Grandmaster. Then take down the Tianqing school and rule over Sidoni. Zhou Xian had been humiliated time and time again. He hated Jiang Tian to the bone and lost his patience. He had absolute confidence in Fan Qilong. Fan Qilong is the trump card of the Aizen Zhoro family. Kong Teichu is no match for him. Seeing the state preceptor make a move, Nalan Li, Naran Qinghe, Nalan Tu and the others' dejection and fear were swept away. Their faces became very excited as if Jiang Tian was dead for sure. One had to know that Fan Qilong was the sect leader of Kongdong. Back then he was an existence that could compete with the Kunlun sect and the Qingqing sect. At the end of the Qing dynasty, Fan Qilong, as the country's imperial teacher, was invincible. Back when the Empress Dowager was chased out of the imperial city by the Eight-Nation Alliance, other than head eunuch Li Lianying, he was her bodyguard. He had once killed thousands of pursuers with a single strike of his sword and fought against a king sage of the Holy See. Even the Iha fist was taught by him. It was said that his disciples were good at divine fighting. They could make hand seals and chant spells to invite the gods into their bodies. They could withstand bullets and were not afraid of artillery fire. Zhou Xian's martial arts were also taught by him. He was a real earth immortal powerhouse. Even if you call yourself a divine immortal, I'm afraid you don't live up to your name. After all, you are only in your 30s. Your cultivation is shallow and your combat experience is insufficient. How can you be a match for this old monster who has lived for hundreds of years? At this moment, Zhou Xian was full of confidence. His eyes were shining with the light of wisdom as if Jiang Tian was already a dead man. Fan Qilong, the most powerful man in Wuxia in the late Qing dynasty. Kong Teichu's head is mine. You are not qualified to kill him. But at this moment, a strange howl that could pierce through gold and crack stone shot straight up into the sky. Even the clouds were shattered. Get out of my way. This strange howl was like the roar of a tiger deep in the mountains. It shook the wilderness and the drizzle slanted. Within a radius of 3 miles, the earth and mountains shook. Everyone from the Nalan family was shaken to the point that they staggered back. They were dizzy and their hearts were filled with disgust as they vomited. Even Nalan Li and Zhou Xian, who were half a step away from the immortal state, couldn't bear it. Their faces were pale. Clang. Suddenly rocks flew and mud arrows burst out. A deep pit with a radius of 5 or 6 meters was formed on the marble floor. Billowing waves of air pushed out. The momentum was terrifying. Everyone in the Nalan family was shaken to the point that they were thrown off their feet. Their eyes were filled with fear. A majestic figure, like a meteorite falling from the sky, fell heavily on the ground. In the billowing smoke and flames. Bang! In the muffled sound, a foot stepped out of the deep pit. The foot was wearing a pair of metal boots covered with mysterious runes. It was like an immortal treasure metal. As soon as that foot appeared, the aura of the entire cemetery grew sluggish. A sinister coldness enveloped the entire area, and a violent pressure surged out in all directions. Except for Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing, everyone felt that it was difficult to breathe and almost suffocated. A European powerhouse wearing medieval armor and holding a blood-stained spear walked out of the smoke and steam that permeated the air. His curly golden hair was draped over his shoulders. He had a full beard, a high nose and deep eyes. His eyes were as blue as the sea. They were cold and wild, like a wolf that was choosing its prey. He had a complex temperament of divinity and bestiality intertwined on his body. It was holy, cruel, bright, and bloodthirsty. It was as if he could overlook the common people and punish the world. This is Saint Augustine. When he saw his face, Fan Qilong's heart instantly fell into the abyss. He was so scared that his face turned pale and his body trembled violently. When the Eight-Nation Alliance invaded, Fan Qilong had fought with Saint Augustine, but he was no match for him. After all, the other party was the last adjudicator of the Holy See, the guardian of the Holy See's holy tomb. His combat strength was that of a genuine saint king. His saint arts were omnipotent and his spear was unpredictable. It's him. Zhou Xian's expression changed drastically. He looked at Saint Augustine in horror. Nalan Li and the others were so scared that their expressions changed drastically. Cold sweat broke out instantly. State Preceptor Fan, I heard that you want to defeat the Holy See and ascend to the throne of the world's strongest? Why don't you go through me first? Saint Augustine's eyes were arrogant. He walked over with steady steps, making muffled thuds. The armor on his body rubbed against each other, making the sound of metal clashing. His Chinese was very pure and even had a Beijing accent. Powerful people like him used to roam the world, challenging and killing everywhere. They could almost master all kinds of languages. Old man, I don't dare. Fan Qilong panicked, his eyes filled with fear. He cowered like a little white rabbit in front of a ferocious tiger. He staggered back step by step. What he said just now was just a bluff at the start of the battle. How would he dare to fight the Roman Curia to the death? If he had the guts and the ability, the Empress Dowager wouldn't have been chased by the Holy See back then. Haha, you want to admit defeat? What a coward. Then kneel down and submit to the Holy See. Saint Augustine stood still with his spear in his hands. He looked at Fan Qilong in disdain, then glanced at Zhou Xian and laughed. Are you a descendant of the decadent Qing dynasty royal family? Ridiculous yellow monkey, weak chicken. Kneel down too. Zhou Xian was tongue-tied, but he didn't dare to speak. He shivered in fear as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His face was pale. Since he could remember, his father and brother had instilled in him the power of the West, not only strong ships and cannons, but also holy spells and magic. When he was 10 years old, he once bumped into a Caucasian student on the street. That Caucasian student scolded him, "Ridiculous yellow monkey, weak chicken, kneel down." He gave him a few slaps. When his father Jin Wanxiong found out, not only did he not help him, he even forced him to kneel down and whipped him. He was almost beaten to death. Since then he had a deep psychological shadow. Even when he saw the face of a European, even if it was just an ordinary person, he would feel a little scared. This fear had become a kind of thinking habit, deeply implanted in his brain. Not to mention that he was facing a real holy king. Saint Augustine, don't be overbearing and bully the weak. Our Wuxia is the celestial empire, a country of etiquette. We have always convinced people with reason we don't want to fight with you. I'm not afraid of you. Fan Qilong's body shivered, but he still mustered up his courage and shouted at the top of his lungs. He even had a sobbing tone, as if he was a resentful woman who was bullied. Jiang Tian lightly shook his head, his heart filled with sorrow. This is the state teacher of a country, yet he is so cowardly and fearful of the enemy. So what if I bully you and humiliate you? You want to convince people with reason? What a joke. The weak don't have the right to reason with the strong. Saint Augustine looked at Fan Qilong as if he was looking at a fool and said mockingly, I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. Either kneel down and submit to the Holy See or die. Chapter 990. 3, 2, 1. He did not give Fan Qilong any time to think and attacked in the blink of an eye. Clang. His right foot stomped on the ground and the marble floor exploded. He leaped into the air like a ferocious tiger and charged towards Fan Qilong like a cannonball in the sky. Saint Ogu, you're such a bully. Fan Qilong had nowhere to retreat. He roared and clawed at Saint Ogu with both hands. Black mist filled his hands and a foul stench filled the air. The black mist condensed into shadows of venomous snakes that flickered in and out. His curved nails turned pitch black and shone with a chilling light as he clawed at Saint Ogu. Boom! When the two of them collided, it was as if thunder had exploded. A bolt of lightning appeared out of nowhere and the entire Wu town could hear the deafening explosion. The drizzle instantly turned into white steam. The dark clouds seemed to have been blown away by the gods, revealing the blue sky and the bright sunlight. However, Fan Qilong was sent flying over 100 meters away by Saint Ogu's spear. Fan Qilong fell into the mud like a dead dog. His clothes were torn and tattered, hanging on his body like rags, revealing skin full of age spots. His bright and smooth braids were also messed up. His hair was disheveled and his face was covered in dirt. Where was his original lofty and unrivaled charm? The whole place was dead silent. The Grand Tutor, lost so miserably. Zhou Xian and the Nalan family were terrified. They shivered as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. "Broken, my hands are broken," Fan Qilong screamed. His hands were stained with blood. His skin was torn, his tendons were broken and his nails were all shattered. He was best at martial arts with his hands. However, he was defeated in a second. He might not be able to use his cultivation anymore. What? The Grand Tutor lost in one move? Nalan Li and the rest were so shocked that their faces turned pale. They could not believe it. In their hearts, the Grand Tutor was like a god. Grand Tutor Fan Qilong was defeated by this person before. Nalan Bo was not surprised. He shook his head and sighed. "Zhou Xian, are you still not going to kneel down? People of a fallen country, it is your honor to submit to the Holy See. Or let me twist your head off." Sheng Aogu's eyes were filled with arrogance, and his face was filled with cold, killing intent. Zhou Xian was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. He staggered backward just like his ancestors. "This old man will fight it out with you." Fan Qilong roared, exerting all his strength and rushed towards Saint Ogu like a black gust of wind. Although this kind of person was sinister and vicious, there was one thing about him. He was loyal and devoted to his master. As a vassal, the monarch worries about the vassal and the vassal works hard. When the monarch is humiliated, the vassal dies. He had no choice but to fight regardless of life and death. However, Saint Augustus's hand reached out and a ray of holy light shot out, directly grabbing Fan Qilong. A large hand that was like an iron clamp tightly grabbed his throat and lifted him up like an eagle grabbing a chick. "Ant. Remember, in front of me you, Fan Qilong, are just a weak ant." Saint Augustus grinned and then smashed Fan Qilong to the ground like a rag. Rumble. Another big hole appeared on the marble floor. Fan Qilong screamed. His face was pale and gloomy as he spurted out a mouthful of blood. "Grand Tutor of the Qing dynasty? Unfortunately, you're too weak." Saint Augustus's face was full of mockery. He raised his right foot and stomped down. Crack. Fan Qilong's sternum was broken. Blood spurted out like an arrow. Fan Qilong's chest was pierced through by his foot. However, Fan Qilong did not die. After all, he was an earth-immortal powerhouse with vigorous vitality. His pupils were dilated like a fish out of water. He opened his mouth and gasped for breath, spurting out blood. The #1 powerhouse of the Qing dynasty in Wuxia is too weak. Saint Augustus chuckled and stomped on Fan Qilong's head again. Bang! Fan Qilong's head exploded like a fragile watermelon. Red and white matter splattered in all directions. His braids were also sent flying far away. "Oh my God!" Feeling his face burning, Zhou Xian reached out his hand and touched a round eyeball. He was so scared that his knees went soft and his whole body twitched. He almost knelt on the ground. This is the former #1 powerhouse of Wuxia, a trashy existence. Saint Augustus looked up and laughed complacently. Okay, people of the Qing dynasty, Nalan family of the Dragon Protector bloodline, I'm too lazy to make a move. All of you kneel down and submit to me. Pledge your loyalty to the Holy See and sincerely atone for your sins. You have no faith and are all guilty." Dead silence. The whole place was dead silent. Anger, but it was a silent, suppressed anger. The dignified state preceptor of the Qing dynasty was trampled to death like this. But at the same time, a feeling of helplessness and despair rose in everyone's heart. That was the state preceptor of the Qing dynasty, Fan Qilong, an earth immortal. Who could be his opponent? Jiang Tian, please help us and save our Nailan family. At this time Nailan Li and the others were frightened and trembling. They looked at Jiang Tian for help. Narenqinghe even knelt down in front of Jiang Tian. If they didn't submit, only death would await them. If they submitted, they would become a big joke. After all, they were the dignified dragon protector bloodline and had their own dignity. Only Jiang Tian could make a move. Why should I help you? Jiang Tian didn't even look at them. You're not going to save us? After all, we're family. Nailan Li said pitifully. Why should I save you? When did you treat us as family? Jiang Tian snorted and said indifferently, didn't you want to leave the Nailan family? Jiang Tian asked in a powerful and resonating voice, didn't you threaten me to submit to the Jin family? Oh, the Jin family is very powerful. The old state preceptor is very powerful. You should go ask him for protection. Narenqinghe and the others were stunned. They were shocked and panicked and they regretted it. They didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so heartless and turn his back on them. But when they thought about it, Jiang Tian didn't seem to be wrong. Nailan Bo also sighed helplessly. These children had offended Jiang Tian yesterday and spoke rudely today. How could they blame Jiang Tian? Narenqinghe and the others finally couldn't bear the pressure and knelt down in front of St. Augustine. What are you doing? Where's the dignity of the dragon protector bloodline? Are you trying to anger me to death? Nailan Bo didn't expect his grandchildren to be so disappointing. Grandpa, saving our lives is more important. If we lose our lives, what dignity is there to talk about? Narenqinghe said with a frown. Nailan Bo still wanted to say something. Suddenly, anger, unwillingness, humiliation, and many other complex emotions flashed across Zhou Xian's face. But in the end he knelt down and even kowtowed to beg for mercy. That you're right. The imperial family's fortune is broken and the true dragon is gone. What dragon are we protecting? What dignity is there to talk about? Nailan Li chuckled and kowtowed to St. Augustine without any shame. Everyone else followed suit. For a moment, everyone present was kneeling. Only Jiang Tian, his wife, and Nailan Bo were left standing there. Seeing this, Nailan Bo's face was dejected and miserable. He laughed crazily and said, if people don't fear death, why should they fear death? His eyes were filled with sorrow and despair. The great Qing's destruction was already destined. What broken fortune, destroyed dragon veins, it's all nonsense. It's all because of one thing. Rotten, muddle-headed, soft, cowardly, too disappointing. Even the dignified reclusive royalty is kneeling to me. How satisfying. Seeing this, St. Augustine was overjoyed and laughed arrogantly. No wonder you Wuxia people are called the sick men of East Asia. The cultivation techniques of Wuxia are also so weak. I really look down on you. But in my eyes you're just a bunch of ants. I won't kill you. I just need to let the world know the power of the Holy See. The Great Wuxia has a history of 5,000 years. There are countless people with extraordinary abilities. How can a bastard like you have the right to comment on it? Suddenly a cold voice sounded. It was Jiang Tian who stepped forward and reprimanded St. Augustine. Jiang Tian, don't mess around. Nailan Bo was shocked to the point his face changed drastically and he pulled Jiang Tian. It was rumored that Jiang Tian had used the space-time reversal saber art in his battle with Yi Tianren and was heavily injured. Of course, according to what Nailan Li and the others said, Jiang Tian could still use some psychic abilities, but this did not mean that Jiang Tian could compete with St. Augustine. If Jiang Tian died, who would the Nailan family rely on in the future? If Jiang Tian died an unnatural death, how was he going to explain to Qing'er's mother after he passed away? Kung Teichu, you're crazy. Kneel down and admit defeat. Zhou Xian also turned his head and reprimanded. His eyes looked like they could eat people. Everyone was kneeling down and submitting, enduring humiliation in exchange for a chance to live. But with St. Augustine's murderous personality, he would definitely be enraged. Not only would he kill Jiang Tian, he might even kill everyone present. Kung Teichu, are you crazy? We begged you just now and you didn't help. Now that the Westerners have agreed to let us go, you're meddling in other people's business. Nailan too and the others roared. Narenqinghe and the others turned pale as they hesitated whether to pull Jiang Tian back or not. Chapter 991. Kong Teichu, I didn't expect you to provoke me after I killed Fan Qilong. Saint Augu's bloodthirsty gaze had already landed on Jiang Tian as he laughed sinisterly. But you really deserve to die. You called yourself Tai Chu, and pretended to be a prophet and a god. You kept provoking the Holy See. I wanted to spare your life, but you dared to provoke me again. Then don't blame me for slaughtering my way to your Tianqing sect after killing you. I'll use this as a warning to the world that the Holy See is the most powerful orthodoxy on earth and cannot be offended. Saint Augu said with the arrogance of dominating the world and punishing all living beings. He was the last adjudicator of the Holy See. He was in charge of criminal law and had burned many scientists and heretics to death. His hands were stained with blood, and there were tens of thousands of vengeful souls under his command. Even many immortal state warriors, blood ancestors and wolf ancestors had to retreat when they saw him. He said with a sneer. I heard that you've lost some power. I won't bully you. How about I only use one hand? He put his left hand behind his back and held the spear with his right hand. He said with disdain, I only need one hand. I can crush you into a pulp in one move. Under Saint Augu's murderous gaze, Naylan Li and the others felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They didn't even dare to move a finger. He was so terrified that he could only run as far as he could away from Jiang Tian, the god of plague, and cut off all ties with him. In an instant, everyone retreated and scattered in all directions. Naran Qinghe shouted, Saint Augu, please. Lord Xing'aogu, please investigate thoroughly. Jiang Taichu has nothing to do with my Naylan family. Please don't take your anger out on the Naylan family. Only Naylan Bo stood with Jiang Tian and his wife. He was so angry that he beat his chest and stomped his feet. He shouted, You bastards. You have no humanity and no guts. How can the Naylan family give birth to scum like you? Let's attack together and we might have a chance to defeat him. A young girl who looked to be less than 20 years old and was wearing a leather jacket, rushed over with a pistol in her hand and shouted loudly, You're in trouble. Saint Augu, how dare you commit crimes in Wuxia? I won't let you go. Ah Chu. Zhao Xueqing shouted softly. This girl was called Naylan Chu. She was the granddaughter of Naylan Bo and his concubine. She didn't have a high status in the family, but she treated Qing'er well and had always treated her like her own sister. Perhaps she didn't like the atmosphere of a feudal family, so she left the family a long time ago. For the past few days she had been pursuing Saint Augustine. Today she had taken a day off to rush back to see her cousin. However, he didn't expect to bump into Saint Augu the moment he arrived at the family graveyard. Cousin, brother-in-law. Naylan Chu didn't know the strength of Jiang Tian and his wife. Although she was trembling with nervousness, she still stood in front of them. Pointing his spear at Saint Augustine, he shouted loudly, Let's go. Saint Augu, Naylan Chu, an investigator of our country's security division, orders you to surrender immediately. Jiang Tian couldn't help but laugh. He didn't expect that the one who dared to stand out from the Naylan family was a little girl. Achu, hurry up and leave. You don't know how terrifying this person is. Naylan Bo stomped his feet anxiously and pushed Jiang Tian, shouting, Oh, Grandpa has let you down. I've caused trouble for you. Run. Run as far as you can. As long as there's life, there's hope. Jiang Tian took a step forward, his face calm and unhurried, and said lightly, He killed a few of my men, Zhou Zhenghao with Zimu. I have to avenge them. He pried away Naylan Bo's withered twig-like hands that were tightly gripping his sleeves. He strode over to St. Augustus and said with a cold gaze, Don't worry. Also, he humiliated Wuxia. As a descendant of Yan and Huang, I have to teach him a lesson. Saint Augu, I only need a finger to kill you today. As for you, please use your full strength. Naylan Bo was left in place, shaking his head and sighing. He stomped his feet and his eyes suddenly turned red. He had the urge to cry. Naylan Li and the others must have repeatedly humiliated and disrespected Jiang Tian, forcing him to hand over Sidoni. This made Jiang Tian anxious to prove his strength. After all, Jiang Tian couldn't kill Naylan Li and the others. Now that he thought about it, only Jiang Tian, who was loyal and unyielding, was the hope of the Naylan family. These descendants of the family were useless. Reckless. Ha Kong Teichu, you are indeed arrogant. But to offend my holy see, you must pay with your life. Saint Augu was enraged. His aura soared and his eyes were as cold as knives. He dragged his spear toward Jiang Tian and coldly said, "Today I won't kill you, only Kong Teichu. I only ask that everyone be my witness." He was courting death, not me, Saint Augu, who took advantage of his injury to bully him. Everyone was overjoyed when they heard this. Kong Teichu had danced well. Who would have thought that he would actually infuriate Saint Augu, allowing him to keep his life? A trace of coldness appeared in Jin Zixuan's eyes as he scanned the surroundings. Kneeling and submitting today was a great humiliation. If this were to spread, he would become the laughing stock of the world. And Jiang Tian's death could cover up some of the news. If he killed the Nalan family, the news wouldn't spread. Saint Augu's eyes were ferocious as he walked faster and faster. In the end, he dashed out like a tiger charging out of a dragon. The heavy spear dragged on the ground. The sharp tip of the spear rubbed against the marble floor, creating sparks. Rumble. He stomped down, and a bright holy light shot out from under his feet. It was as if a sun had appeared out of thin air, dazzling everyone. The marble floor under his feet turned to dust, creating a 10-meter deep pit. Violent shockwaves blasted the rubble in all directions. The surrounding tombstones were hit by the rubble and were pushed around by the shockwaves. Some even cracked and exploded. Eternal fire of hell, eternal punishment. Kong Teichu, you will taste this pain day and night. Saint Augu roared, thrusting out with his spear. Instantly, wherever the spear passed, black gas filled the air. Within a radius of several thousand meters, the sun and moon lost their light. It was pitch black. The air was scorching hot. Crimson flames spewed out like a volcanic eruption with lava flowing everywhere. The dark angel roared as he swung his weapon. The nameless insect bared its fangs and brandished its claws. The intense earth fire seemed to burn the heavens and all sins. A bitter, austere and indescribable pain enveloped Jiang Tian. Seeing this, countless people's faces turned grave. They exclaimed, "The Book of Revelation once recorded, in the bottomless pit of darkness, there are immortal insects and inextinguishable flames, causing people to suffer for eternity." Saint Augu actually simulated the punishment of hell with a single spear. Too terrifying. It's 10 times more powerful than the move that defeated Fan Qilong. I'm afraid that even if Kong Teichu is at the peak of heaven immortal state, he won't be able to block it. Not to mention that he's already injured and his cultivation has dropped greatly. This time Kong Teichu is dead for sure. It's good that he's dead, lest he covets our Nalan family's property and fights with me for power. Saint Augu is only the vanguard, but he's already so powerful. Then how powerful our Pope, the last holy venerable of the Holy See, Saint Paul, and the God awakened in the Holy Tomb. Kong Teichu is dead for sure in this battle. The Nalan family and Aizen family had different emotions and expressions. Some were scared out of their wits, some were gloating, and some were grieving for the loss of their kind. However, Jiang Tian chuckled disdainfully. "So this is your trump card? Is this the Holy Church's divine punishment holy spell? Isn't it too weak? Fine. I'll show you what a true divine punishment is." Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed. He raised his crystal-clear right hand and pointed with a finger as if he was squashing an ant. However, when he pointed with his finger, boom. With this sound, the space and time within 1 kilometer in front of Jiang Tian froze. A golden ray of light that was densely covered with supreme Tao runes that seemed like the laws of heaven and earth, and it was suffused with an ancient aura of nature. It emitted a dazzling golden light and soared through the sky like a missile. Under the illumination of the golden light, the dark angels, the undying venomous worms, the billowing black gas, and the gushing lava exploded like bubbles, turning into streams of air and dispersing. Oh no! Saint Augu's face was filled with shock and he was alarmed. His sacred art phenomena could kill an immortal state warrior. It took Saint Augu hundreds of years of hard work to form them, but they couldn't even last a second. Kong Teichu was so powerful. He stomped his feet in the air, holy light gushing out from the soles of his feet. He roared as he soared into the sky like a rocket. Dragging his spear, he turned into a streak of black light and retreated like a shooting star. Chapter 992. Saint Augu was indeed extraordinary. He instantly broke through 2 times the speed of sound, and his speed had reached an unimaginable level. He could even dodge the continuous shots from the Barrett sniper rifle. However, Jiang Tian's finger beam was even faster. In the blink of an eye, it crossed hundreds of meters and was only a few meters away from Saint Augu. Block for me. Saint's spell, shield of holy light. Saint Augu roared loudly like a sudden clap of thunder. It was so loud that everyone's eardrums were about to burst and their heads were buzzing. He shook his spear and dazzling holy light spread out. The tip of the spear trembled rapidly and drew several arcs in the air. Suddenly, the dazzling holy light formed a huge shield with a radius of 3 meters. There was a cross on it with thorny flowers and angels flying. Looked holy and mystical. However, all of this collapsed in a second. The finger beam shattered the shield of holy light and hit the tip of the spear. Crack. A shocking crack quickly spread from the tip of the spear along the shaft of the spear. The entire spear exploded inch by inch in the blink of an eye and flew in the air like pieces of paper. Saint Augu's body shook violently and his hands were stained with blood. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He roared, "Holy light, speed," and was about to use a secret technique to escape. However, it was already too late. The Gungjin finger beam increased in speed and tapped his chest, breaking through layers of holy light defense and armor. It pierced through his chest and flew back. Saint Augu's body, which could withstand the barrage of cannons and wasn't afraid of the cluster missiles, exploded in the air, turning into a rain of sparkling flesh that rained down. Boom. The shockwave didn't stop, and a mountain with a radius of 1 mile was razed to the ground. Jiang Tian's finger beam broke the Hell God's punishment, broke the shield of holy light, shattered the spear, and finally killed the last adjudicator elder of the Holy See Adjudication Institute, Saint Augu. The entire place was dead silent, not a single sound could be heard. No one had expected such an outcome. All the members of the Nalan family were shocked and no one dared to speak. From Saint Augu's arrival to Jiang Tian's finger beam killing him, only a few minutes had passed. However, everyone's mood was like riding a roller coaster, going up and down, turning the world upside down. Whether it was Saint Augu's unparalleled might that defeated Fan Qilong with one spear or Jiang Tian's finger that swept across the sky, they were all deeply shocked. Was this still the power of a human? In particular, Jiang Tian's finger was as powerful as a missile, and it even shattered their souls. So you're actually so powerful. With a single finger he killed the Holy King of the Holy See. No wonder you don't even care about reclusive royalty. Naran Qinghe's beautiful eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Nalan Li was so scared that his whole body quivered. He couldn't wait to give himself a few slaps. She dared to covet Sidoni with her looks. The rest of the Nalan family felt a burst of regret. If they had known that this Master Kong was so powerful, they would have curried favor with him. Jin Sohyun's body went limp and he collapsed to the ground, his heart filled with despair. This Kong Taechu was really too strong. He had offended him and it would be difficult for him to survive today. Only Nalan Bo's face was filled with ecstasy. He raised his eyebrows and laughed loudly as if he had found a big gold ingot. Decades of pent-up anger were swept away. It seemed that the strength of this grandson-in-law of his was even stronger than he had imagined. Even the powerhouses of the Holy See could not withstand a single blow. With this kind of strength, does your Jin family still want to enslave our Nalan family? You'll be scared to death. Cousin, who is your husband? Why is he so powerful? Nalan Chu held Zhou Xueqing's hands and looked at Jiang Tian with shock and worship, as if she was looking at a real god. He is called Jiang Tian and his other name is Kong Taechu. Zhao Xueqing said softly. Oh, it's him. Oh my god. He's my idol. Sister, your husband is really awesome. You are so lucky. Nalan Chu's beautiful eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They were filled with shock and surprise as well as deep envy for Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing touched her big belly, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Deep in the depths of her eyes was a strong sense of pride. Yes. So this is my husband, my invincible and omnipotent husband. Only Jiang Tian stood with his hands behind his back. His face was calm and he was neither sad nor happy. To others, the Holy See was one of the strongest orthodoxies in the world, but to Jiang Tian it was not worth mentioning at all. In the eyes of everyone, Saint Ogu was the tomb keeper of the Holy Tomb, the last adjudicator of the Holy See, and a sage king-level powerhouse with a lifespan of hundreds of years. But to Jiang Tian, it was just a bug that Jiang Tian could squash to death with one finger. Jiang Tian could even crush the golden core powerhouses of the heavenly star small world. He had once killed 600 exalted immortals with one sword. Who on earth could stop him? A sage king's strength was only equivalent to the early stage of foundation establishment. To Jiang Tian it was nothing at all. Master Kong, you are the true dragon of the 9 heavens. By the will of heaven, the Aizen Zhou family is willing to honor you. Jin Sohyun's face was pale. He moved his knees and crawled to Jiang Tian, wagging his tail and begging for mercy. Let Master Kong know that I am the deputy chief of the Reclusive Royalty Alliance. If I say the word, all the reclusive royalty will listen to you. In addition, my reclusive royalty has already reached the southwest border to resist the strong enemy. Even if I don't have any merits, I still have to work hard. Even if I don't work hard, I still have to be tired. I hope you can show mercy. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Jiang Tian snorted. He slowly raised his right hand and slapped Jin Sohyun's face. You have repeatedly offended and provoked me. If I don't kill you, how can I, Kong Taechu, maintain my dignity? Jin Sohyun was sent flying dozens of meters away. He rolled on the ground like a dead dog. His cheeks were bleeding and a few of his teeth had fallen out. The guards under him, who had been showing off before, didn't even dare to fart. They just knelt on the ground and trembled. Jiang Tian raised his hand and grabbed Jin Sohyun. He grabbed Jin Sohyun's throat with his right hand, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. Is your reclusive royalty very strong? Is it the mandate of the heavens? If you have the guts, fight me. I don't dare. I have eyes but failed to recognize a true dragon. In front of you I'm just a bug. I apologize. Jin Sohyun was lifted up by Jiang Tian by the throat. He was completely suffocated. His face was red and his tongue was sticking out. He could feel the true qi in his body quickly flowing away. He couldn't help but be terrified. Apologize. What were you doing earlier? Slap. Jiang Tian slapped him again. Jin Sohyun's nose was bleeding and his nose was crooked. You dare to threaten me? Do you know what the name Kong Taechu represents? Slap. Another crisp sound of a slap rang out. 3 teeth flew out of Jin Sohyun's face. Even his cheekbones could be seen. He had a splitting headache from Jiang Tian's slap. He couldn't even say a word of rebuttal. Boom. Jiang Tian heavily threw Jin Sohyun to the ground. Jin Sohyun smashed a deep hole in the ground. His skin was lacerated and his clothes were stained with blood. Jiang Tian stepped on Jin Sohyun's head. He glanced at the Nalan family and sneered. Nalan. Everyone, this is what you rely on. This is the so-called true dragon son of heaven. Isn't he too weak? Isn't he disappointing me too much? Jiang Tian, no, Master Kong, this is all a misunderstanding. Nalan Li and his brothers were scared out of their wits. They kept quiet out of fear and didn't dare to make a sound. Naran Qinghe almost peed in her pants. When I lost my cultivation and had this trash as my backer, you dare to bully me? Jiang Tian kicked Jin Sohyun until he rolled on the ground like a football. He mocked. If I kill him now, what can the reclusive royalty do to me? What can you do? Nalan Li and the others were stunned by Jiang Tian. They were scared out of their wits. They didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so overbearing and powerful. He even dared to trample on the reclusive royalty and kill him. If it weren't for Jiang Tian's sentiments, the Nalan family would have been slaughtered by him. Qinghe, do you still remember Uncle Jin? Uncle Jin once hugged you. I was the one who sent off your mother on her last journey. Jin Sohyun was covered in dust. He crawled and rolled like a dead dog and rushed to Zhou Xian. He kowtowed and begged for mercy. Hurry up and say something for Uncle. Jiang Tian loves you so much. He will definitely listen. Zhou Xian's expression was difficult. Her mood was complicated. Honestly speaking, when Jin Zixuan shouted at Jiang Tian to beat and kill him just now, she also had the intention to kill him. No matter how close Jin Sohyun was, how could he be closer to her than her husband? However, women were soft-hearted. Especially now that she was pregnant, she felt happy, safe and happy. She didn't want Jiang Tian to be alone. Moreover, what Jin Sohyun said was indeed true. At that time he was indeed deeply in love with Nalan Iran. He was extremely benevolent and had accompanied her mother through her last bleak days. Thinking of this, Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment and said softly, Jiang Tian, why don't we forget about it? He is quite pitiful. This man is sinister and vicious. He is as cunning as a fox. Jiang Tian smiled. The cold killing intent in his eyes did not recede. Qing'er, letting him go today is tantamount to letting a tiger return to the mountain. I'm afraid he will cause trouble again. Chapter 993. Granduncle. Please help me say something. I, Zhou Xian, swear to God that I will never be an enemy of Jiang Tian. If we meet in the future, I will avoid him as a sign of respect. Knowing that he would be turned into a meat paste by Jiang Tian's palm, Zhou Xian trembled in fear and looked at Nailan Bo pleadingly. Nailan Bo also couldn't bear it. In the end he let out a long sigh and looked at Zhou Xian. The old man can speak for you, but if Jiang Tian spares you today, my Nailan family and your Aizenjoro family will no longer be monarchs and subjects. We won't have to listen to your orders. Of course. In the future we will be friends on equal terms. We will serve Master Kong together. How would I dare to act rashly? Zhou Xian hurriedly agreed. Nailan Bo pulled Jiang Tian and begged in a low voice, Jiang Tian, can you give the old man some face today? In the face of a great enemy we should fight against external enemies first. We don't have to cause internal strife in Wuxia. Unwilling to let Qing'er be sad and hurt herself, Jiang Tian had no choice but to put down his palm. Then he stared coldly at Zhou Xian and sneered. Zhou Xian, I will spare your life today, but you must tell the reclusive royalty not to meddle in other people's business. My Tianqing school is enough to deal with the Holy See and Brahmin. When everyone heard this, it was as if they were struck by lightning. They couldn't believe it. Originally, the Holy See and Brahmin were stopped outside the country's gates because of the reclusive royalty. If the reclusive sovereign family no longer resisted, then wouldn't they be invincible and invincible? How could Kong Teichu and Tianqing school resist? Nailan Bo's complexion also changed drastically. He wanted to say something but hesitated. He was from the Dragon Protector bloodline. Back in the day he was an important official of the dynasty and was well versed in the art of power. If Tianqing school wanted to defeat the Holy See and Brahmin and become the world's #1 orthodoxy, of course, they had to use all the power they could. Only then could they achieve twice the result with half the effort. Moreover, he could also take the opportunity to weaken the power of the reclusive royalty. Wouldn't that be perfect? But in the end he didn't say anything. He believed that Jiang Tian must have his own reasons for doing this. Good. I will definitely deliver Master Kang's imperial edict. Don't worry. Zhou Xian was slightly taken aback before he hurriedly replied. Also, there are some things that shouldn't be said, so don't say them. If you dare to say them, I'll turn you into ashes. Jiang Tian's gaze was sharp as he coldly snorted. There was another reason why he didn't kill Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian had never threatened him with the truth of Qing'er's background. At least he was good to Nailan Iran and had some feelings for Qing'er. He still had some humanity. Of course, if he dared to reveal the truth in the future, he would also have to die. Jiang Tian wouldn't let him go. Zhou Xian glanced at Zhao Xueqing from the corner of his eyes and hurriedly said, Don't worry, great sect leader Jiang. I understand. Good. Then get lost. Let your reclusive royalty people return. I have a way to deal with it. Jiang Tian waved his sleeves as if he was driving away flies. Zhou Xian acted as if he had been pardoned. He brought a few guards to collect Fan Qilong's corpse and left in a sorry state. When Zhou Xian came, he was arrogant and haughty. When he left, he suffered heavy losses and his face was covered in dirt. A few guards were so scared that they were trembling with unease. Nailan Bo was very depressed. It was obviously a good thing. Nailan family could have relied on Jiang Tian. How did it end up like this? A great future and 1,000 years of glory were ruined by Zhou Xian and his blind descendants. Jiang Tian, today's matter, this old man is really ashamed. I didn't expect Zhou Xian to suddenly barge in. These few good-for-nothings, sigh. Nailan Bo wanted to say something but stopped. He looked embarrassed. It's already over. Jiang Tian patted Nailan Bo's shoulder and comforted him with a smile. Didn't I just say that you are no longer part of the Dragon Protector clan? From now on you are completely independent. Although Nailan Bo was Jiang Tian's elder, he did not feel the slightest dissatisfaction or discomfort when Jiang Tian patted his shoulder. Instead he felt honored. Seniority was seniority, strength was strength. Jiang Tian obviously had the strength to stand shoulder to shoulder with the reclusive royalty, or even a level above it. This meant that Jiang Tian did not treat him as an outsider. Jiang Tian glanced at Nalan Li and the rest with a smile that was not a smile and said coolly, "On account of your face I can give them a chance. I think Nalan Chu is a good girl. She is also at the initial stage of transcendent stage. She can take on a big responsibility. She will be the family head in the future." "Brother-in-law, I will be the family head?" Nalan Chu was stunned. She felt like she had picked up a treasure. "I just came here to be a bystander. How can I become the family head?" Okay, it's up to you." Nalan Bo was overjoyed when he heard this. He was so excited that his body trembled. He bowed and cupped his fists. "Master Kong, your mind is as broad as the sky. This old man admires you." Then he glanced at the Nalan family and said coldly, "What are you waiting for? Why are you still standing there? Hurry up and greet the new family head and the principal of Tianqing School. From now on, the Nalan family will join Tianqing School." Nalan Li and the others hesitated for a moment. Although they were unwilling, they finally knelt in front of Jiang Tian, his wife, and Nalan Chu. Jiang Tian then contacted the Huaxiaolong formation and announced to the world that Saint Augustine had been killed. It was not until they walked out of the cemetery, got into the car, and drove more than 10 kilometers away from Wuxian that the fear in Zhou Xian's heart gradually faded and calmed down. Jiang Tian left some leeway. Although Zhou Xian's skin was torn and his flesh was lacerated, the family still had some leftover ointment passed down by the royal family. Now that they had used it, he would recover in a few days. "Crown Prince, the situation now, what should we do?" an aide asked with a solemn expression. We underestimated Kong Techu after all. To be able to control a country and a religion in modern society, he does have some strength. He is indeed domineering, just like a real dragon." Zhou Xian touched his painful face and sighed with a complicated gaze. "Then should we just give up the plan that has lasted for hundreds of years and give up?" That aide was at a loss at this time. As Zhou Xian's right-hand man, this aide was extremely resourceful. Otherwise, the Jin family would not have preserved their bloodline, and they would not have a place in the reclusive royalty. However, facing a powerful existence like Jiang Tian, who was as powerful as a dragon, he felt like a dog biting a porcupine. No, it was like a puppy trying to plot against a prehistoric beast. He could not bring himself to bite him. Kong Techu may be powerful, but he is still miles away from the Holy See and Brahman. Zhou Xian gritted his teeth as he recalled how he had been trampled on by Jiang Tian. His expression was full of resentment and disdain as he snorted coldly. "Didn't he refuse the aid of our reclusive royal family? Fine, then we won't care. Not only will we not care, but we will also publicize it. When the time comes, I'd like to see how many nails he can crush with his body made of iron." The late Qing dynasty was poor and weak, and foreign powers invaded. In fact, not only were there battles between armies, but there were also battles and collisions between top masters. In order to resist the Holy See and the European royal family, 6 or 7 reclusive royalty from Wuxia came out to help. However, they were still defeated. The Holy See's strength was unfathomable, not to mention that the Brahmin had joined forces this time. Even the European reclusive royalty was ready to make a move. Even if Jiang Tian had the cultivation of a celestial immortal, he had only cultivated for a few years. How deep was the foundation of Tianqing School? They were no match at all. "I understand now. My lord's brilliant plan." The aide slapped his thigh and laughed. "Our Jin family and the reclusive royalty will sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. When the Holy See, Brahmin, and Tianqing School are both injured, we will come out and suppress them. We will even take down Sidonia and the Vatican. Kill with a borrowed knife, kill with a borrowed knife." Kong Techu pointed his finger across the sky and killed the last adjudicator of the Holy See, Saint Aogu in Wuxian. When the news spread, the entire cultivation world of Wuxia was shocked. Even Zhou Xian was alarmed. Saint Aogu, the last adjudicator of the Holy See in Vatican City, was a veteran saint king. He defeated the Earth Immortals and was in charge of the punishment of the Holy See. He was the most favored and peerless powerhouse of St. Paul and the Pope. There seemed to be countless halos around his body, making him look like a god. Such an existence in Europe and even in the world was killed by Kong Techu with a finger. Many people couldn't believe it and felt as if they had been struck by lightning. It seems that Kong Techu's cultivation may not have been lost. He finally made a move. He's too powerful. Many martial arts grandmasters in Wuxia were excited, as if a great backer had arrived. But then, the second news spread quickly under the control of Zhou Xian. Kong Teichu was unreasonable and arrogant. He refused the help of Zhou Xian and the reclusive royalty. He wanted to fight the Holy See and Brahmin alone. The world was shocked. Chapter 994. Isn't Jiang Tian being too rash? Zhou Xian looked at the information on the reclusive royalty, shook his head and sighed. At this time the enemy is right in front of us. We should unite all the forces that can be united. Reclusive royalty's strength can't be underestimated. When they received the news from Zhou Xian, the reclusive royalty had different expressions and reactions. At the headquarters of the Moon in the Sky group, the Holy See is probably going to fight back crazily this time. They might even go all out. The martial demon lady wore a set of battle uniform with a soft armor covering her body. She looked like a female general who was going to war. Kong Teichu may be arrogant, but he's fighting for Wuxia. The Wu family can't just stand by and watch. Dressed neatly, she instantly transformed from an enchanting female Xiao into a female god of war. Her fighting spirit was overflowing. She pulled out 2 sharp scimitars and waved them a few times. She glanced at Luo Fei and the others and said, "The Wu family is going all out this time." In the suburbs of Chang'an City, there was an extraordinary ancient mansion. It occupied a large area of hundreds of acres. It was called the Tang Emperor's Hibiscus Garden. No one could enter on normal days. Whether it was the governor of the border, the leader of the underworld, or even the richest people on the Forbes list, no one could enter. Previously, there was a real estate tycoon in the top 10 of Wuxia with a net worth of tens of billions. He wanted to buy this mansion and used force. But that real estate tycoon died inexplicably less than an hour later. The palace at the head of the river locks thousands of doors. Who are the willows green for? This mansion was antique. There were continuous palaces and pavilions. It was majestic and magnificent. It was like stepping into the prosperous Tang dynasty. It was different from the exquisite and small hidden dragon dock. At this time, there were 2 people sitting at a white jade table in the courtyard. They were drinking tea and talking. One was Zhou Xian, and the other was a middle-aged man in a pale yellow Tang suit. This man was in his 40s. His posture was tall and straight and his face was like jade. His eyebrows were slanted to his temples, and his face was dignified without being angry. His body exuded the aura of an emperor, and he was actually able to stand up to Zhou Xian. This person was a descendant of the Tang dynasty's royal family, the head of the Li family reclusive royalty, Li Guangyu. That's what Kong Teichu said back then. Don't make us meddle in other people's business. How is it? What does the Li family think? Zhou Xian asked with a smile. Li Guangyu was obviously infuriated. He slammed his palm on the stone table and immediately a ghastly crack spread out. A moment later, with a rumbling sound, the entire stone table shattered into pieces and fell to the ground. Li Guangyu furrowed his brows and snorted coldly. Our Li family has already sacrificed 30 people, and he dares to say that we're meddling in other people's business. Our hot blood has been fed to the dogs. He stood up, his body trembling with anger. He waved his hand and sneered. Kong Teichu doesn't know what's good for him. He's too arrogant. All members of the Li family retreat 30 miles. Let's see how long Kong Teichu can last. All right. Zhou Xian stood up and said darkly. The Li family and the Jin family have the same goal. To control the mortal world, to welcome the arrival of the immortals from the heavenly star small world. Before this, I had also wanted to persuade Kong Teichu to submit to the stellar sky domain. However, it's obvious that he hates the stellar sky domain. I'm afraid that he will become our enemy in the future. It's good that he's dead. The sooner he dies, the better. However, your younger sister, Lady Wu, has rejected my suggestion. Do you want to persuade her? Who treats her as my younger sister? Back then Wu Zetian was a coward. Our Li family doesn't even acknowledge her clan. Li Guangyu sneered. Just let her go. She'll only be accompanying Kong Teichu in death. Zhou Xian frowned and pondered for a moment. He nodded and said, that's good too. I won't disturb you any longer. It's time to move on to the next stop. Where to? Li Guangyu asked. To Insignia Province, Fengyang County. I'll look for the head of the Zhou family, Zhou Guanlan. Zhou Xian hurried away. Just like that, Zhou Xian did not stop. He traveled through the night and met with many reclusive royalty family heads one after another. Only one day later. Apart from Lady Wu, the Li family, Zhou family and Jin family had already withdrawn from the reclusive royalty battle. Although the other families did not publicly announce their withdrawal, they seemed to be biding their time. After Zhou Xian left, the Nalan family immediately started construction. They built a mausoleum and placed Nalan Iran's ashes in it. The memorial tablet was also placed in the family's ancestral hall. Mom, your daughter has fulfilled your last wish. I hope your spirit in heaven can smile. With Jiang Tian's help, Zhao Xueqing bowed 3 times to her mother's tombstone with tears in her eyes. Jiang Dai, I'm so dizzy. At night, Zhao Xueqing's face turned pale and she fainted once. If it weren't for Jiang Tian's quick action, she would have fallen to the ground. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense and found that Qing'er's physique was even weaker. The baby in her belly was like a glutton, crazily devouring her qi, blood and true essence. Jiang Tian hurriedly helped Zhao Xueqing sit up, and the vast true essence poured in. Jiang Tian even had a feeling of dizziness. In a moment of desperation, Jiang Tian took out the recovery seed from the heavenly star realm and tapped it in the air. A few more spirit essences flew out of the sky-devouring demon gourd and were quickly carved by Jiang Tian's 7th metal true essence to form a spiritual array. The spiritual energy of the recovery seed was transferred into the body of Zhao Xueqing and the baby. Too greedy. You're simply a glutton. I can't afford to raise you. Suddenly, the baby in Qing'er's belly waved its pink fists and greedily swallowed the spiritual energy. Its terrible speed made Jiang Tian stunned. After a full hour, the little girl in the belly was full and stopped swallowing. She curled up her hands and feet and fell asleep. The spirit chi recovery seed was actually swallowed by 1/10. My God, I will be poor because of you. Who will dare to marry you in the future? Jiang Tian was scared out of his wits, his face filled with disbelief. Such a vast amount of spiritual energy, I'm afraid even a golden core or nascent soul expert can be nurtured. He put away the spirit chi recovery seed in the stellar sky domain. Jiang Tian then transferred the vast true essence into Qing'er's chi si. It took another half an hour before Qing'er woke up. Jiang Tian, what's wrong with me? Why am I dizzy? My physique is so strong. Zhao Xueqing lay on the bed holding Jiang Tian's hand and said weakly. It's okay, it's a normal reaction of a pregnant woman. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. At this time Jiang Tian was a little weak. 1/10 of his true essence had been consumed and he was sweating. This had never happened to him before. Even when he defeated Golden Core Li Longyuan, the amount of true essence he consumed was just a drop in the bucket. The wild girl in Qing'er's stomach had a strong swallowing ability. Even Jiang Tian could not resist it. Jiang Tian was very worried. Time did not wait for him. Qing'er and the stupid girl could not wait any longer. They had to destroy the Holy See and the Brahmin as soon as possible. They had to rely on their teleportation array to fight their way to the Heavenly Kingdom and the West Earth dimensional world and get as many spirit chi seeds as possible. He immediately arranged for Situ Xiao to return to Wuxian. Jiang Tian planned for Situ Xiao to take a private plane and send Qing'er back to Sidoni's Tianqing school. On his side, he immediately started killing the Holy See and the Brahmin. At this time, the news of St. Augustine being killed by Jiang Tian had spread to Europe, and the whole world of European masters was shaken. The entire Holy See was furious. The current Pope, St. Louis, was furious. Kong Teichu even dared to kill the last adjudicator of the Holy See. He is challenging the supreme authority of the Pope. He must be suppressed by force. This time, the Holy See should go all out and make Kong Teichu pay the price in blood. A red-robed cardinal slammed the table and roared. The other cardinals, adjudicators, Holy See guards, crusade leaders and abbots were also in an uproar. Now the news of the Holy Tomb being revived and the true God of the Heavenly Kingdom descending had been released. The Holy See's status had risen. Even the United States Pentagon was frightened and sent a deputy minister to the Pope to apologize for forcing the Holy See to close the mountain. Our fight with Kong Teichu is to fight for the world's first orthodoxy, and to lay the foundation for the true God of the Heavenly Kingdom to descend. The current Pope, St. Louis, was as tall as a mountain and surrounded by holy light. He sat on a golden chair inlaid with gems and with his eyes closed, as if he had nothing to do with the world. Only then did he open his eyes and release a powerful energy. He said in a deep voice, "It's time to release the news." "Should we release it together with the Brahmin?" a bishop in council asked. "Of course." The current pope's eyes shone brightly as he said coldly, "This is the only way to convince people. The world is about to change, the dimensional world is about to attack, and the gods are about to descend. Only by believing in the Holy See can we atone for our sins and be saved. This way we can more easily accept believers and the power of faith and completely isolate Kong Techu." "Yes." Everyone hurriedly responded. Once this news was released, it would be a trump card for Jiang Tian. The Wuxia royal family would immediately retreat from the battlefield. Only Kong Techu Tianqing School and the Wuxia Long Formation were no match for the Holy See. In addition, the Holy See Crusade and the 6 great monasteries will immediately go to the east and join forces with the Brahmin believers to kill Kong Techu and annihilate Tianqing School. St. Louis's eyes were like lightning as he roared with murderous intent. "I want to kill Kong Techu and show the world who is the first orthodoxy on this planet." Chapter 995. In fact, Kasayapa Guru had been facing all kinds of accusations. This was because Jiang Tian had helped the Brahmin when he killed Nieming Yuan and the Covenant of Darkness. Many Brahmin elites, including Nirvana, had died at the hands of Nieming Yuan. On the other hand, Jiang Tian and the Brahmin sect did not have any deep grudges. This made it seem that Kasayapa Guru was narrow-minded and that he had declared war on Kong Techu for his own benefit. However, in the face of the crowd's mockery, Master Jia Yi suddenly threw out an earth-shattering news. Kong Techu has killed the immortals of the dimension world in the Qin family of Wuxia. Kong Techu has provoked the immortals. The ruins of immortality and the dimension world will definitely take revenge and bring disaster to mankind. Only by eliminating Kong Techu's henchmen can we appease the immortals' anger. The old man took action this time for the safety of mankind and for the sake of the big picture, not for the sake of the Tao orthodoxy. As soon as these words came out, the entire world was shocked. Even the superpowers were stunned. What? The dimension world? We have lived on Earth for tens of thousands of years, and there is a dimensional passage that leads to another world? Yes, the dimension world is also called the arcane land of the Yin sect and the unknown place. There are many different names. There are many immortal state warriors and immortals in that world. And soon they will invade Earth? This kind of information was only known to the Langley building of the Pentagon and the Wuxia Long Formation and the military. However, other countries were shocked. This was even more shocking than the existence of aliens. Is this true? In the past 100 years on Earth, there were only a few immortals like Kong Techu Yi Tianren and Situ Shao. How can there be a large number of immortals in Star World? Why didn't they come to Earth? That's impossible. Someone questioned. Of course it's true. I saw everything with my own eyes. Qin Zhong's useless son Qin Shaoxiong had made a public statement at the Holy See in the Vatican. The closest one is the stellar sky domain. It only takes 1 day to travel to the Earth domain using the spatial array. He complained with tears of blood. Initially, the stellar sky domain was very friendly. They wanted to turn the Earth domain into a huge cultivation planet. They sent Qing Xian Daozi Immortal Master Yuan and many other immortals to contact my father and brother. Kong Techu was afraid that the stellar sky domain would come to the Earth domain and weaken his power. Without a second thought, he used despicable means to kill them all. Before the Azure Mystic Tao disciple died, he self-detonated his divine soul and sent a message to the stellar sky domain. However, this Qing Xian Daoist has an extraordinary background. He is the son of the master of Heavenly Star. Kong Techu has already committed a grave mistake. How can the Heavenly Star Palace let him go? Moreover, they will vent their anger on the entire Earth world. You have to know that there are thousands of heaven immortals in the stellar sky domain. Killing Kong Techu and destroying the Earth domain is just a matter of a word. Originally, the Wuxia Long Formation Chao Shixiang and other leaders had already issued a gag order. They were not allowed to reveal the visitors from the Heavenly Star Small World and the great changes in the martial arts families in Yanjin. They were even forbidden to control many family members. However, Qin Shaoxiong took the initiative to contact the Holy See. The Holy See helped him escape from prison and spread these secrets. Oh my God! Thousands of heaven immortals. That's terrifying. I'm afraid they can even destroy the earth domain and overturn the existing social order. The Brahmin and the Holy See's choice is for the survival of mankind. We should support them. Many people were shocked when they heard this. After Zhang Tian defeated Yi Tianren, many people estimated that Zhang Tian's cultivation level should be at the heaven immortal level, or even the peak of the earth immortal level. However, Zhang Tian's cultivation level was only at the earth immortal level, and he was already able to shake the United States, suppress Europe and make the world's superpowers tremble. If thousands of heaven immortals from the star world came to Earth together, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Earth would really face a catastrophe and even be destroyed. Kong Teichu has always been fierce and ruthless. He has been killing mercilessly and wreaking havoc all over the world. Today he is finally facing a catastrophe. Some of the experts and forces that had a grudge against Zhang Tian before were gloating over his misfortune. Even if Zhang Tian was a heaven immortal, he would not be able to fight against so many people. He would be killed in the blink of an eye. The Brahmin and the Holy See's decision is for the safety of mankind. It is understandable. From the perspective of the big picture, we should support them. Some forces immediately expressed their opinions. That's right. Kong Teichu offended the heaven immortals for his own benefit and brought a catastrophe to mankind. He deserves to die. Yeah, that's too much. They came to Earth to spread cultivation arts and help mankind evolve. They are interstellar pacifists just like Bethune. However, he had killed all of their envoys and had thoroughly offended them. How can they not come for revenge? Many people thought so. Even some of Zhang Tian's supporters were shaken. Even some Wuxia's reclusive royalty began to change sides and declared war on Zhang Tian and the Tianqing school. All the major forces and even countries were on tenterhooks and had a lot of complaints about Zhang Tian. In an instant, Zhang Tian was completely isolated from the rest of the world. The Tianqing school's foundation is too weak. They will definitely lose this time. We are still on the side of the Holy See and the Brahmin. Some powerhouses and forces who were fence-sitters didn't care so much about right and wrong. They would help whoever was stronger. Unlike the Gathering of Darkness, the Brahmin and the Holy See were all orthodox sects. In the resplendent Middle Ages where heroes rose together, they were called the mainstays. Their foundation was unimaginable. After all, the Holy See had single-handedly suppressed the Gathering of Darkness for many years. One could imagine how terrifying their strength was. Although Zhang Tian and the Tianqing school were powerful in many people's eyes, there was a huge gap between them and such a peerless sect. There were even old missionaries of virtue who came to Wuxia to meet Zhang Tian and Zhou Xian in Wuxia in the name of discussing the survival of the human race as a special envoy of the church. They wanted to mediate the situation. The special envoy of the Holy See had a head of white hair and a benevolent face. If I offend the heaven immortals and gods, I will commit suicide to appease the anger of the heaven immortals. He firmly held the moral high ground. He had a kind face, but he smiled murderously and said, "After all, this is for the lives of 6 billion people in the world. Sacrifice me for the happiness of 6 billion. As for Kong Teichu and the Tianqing school, they should all destroy their own cultivation and be willing to be slaves of the dimensional world. They should surrender and wait for the heaven immortals' judgment." "I don't agree with this." Zhou Xian sneered and said, "The dimensional world's invasion is obvious. The invasiveness of the dimensional world is obvious. My husband is fighting for the humans on Earth. It's not necessarily invasive. They come from a higher civilization. How can they covet Earth?" The special envoy of the Holy See shook his head as if Zhang Tian was too stupid. "It's just like, how as a human would you fight for a nest with ants? We are not ants. Your self-deprecating attitude is really disgusting." Zhou Xian suppressed her annoyance and said calmly, "Besides, even if it's an ant, a termite that can destroy a dam, it will be killed by us. No matter what, Kong Teichu commits suicide and you are willing to be slaves in exchange for the peace of Earth. This kind of sacrifice is also very meaningful and valuable." The special envoy of the Holy See smiled and guided him patiently. "Mr. Jiang, if an extraterrestrial civilization invades, you only need to hand over an innocent person to save the lives of all mankind. Will you hand it over?" "No," Zhang Tian said resolutely. "Then what will you do?" the special envoy of the Holy See questioned. Kill the extraterrestrial civilization even if the whole human race dies in battle. Jiang Tian said calmly, protecting one person is protecting the whole world. If we hand over an innocent person, it's the same as handing over the whole world. Don't give an inch of land, don't take a step back, don't leave anyone behind. Behind you is your home, your family. Stubborn. The special envoy of the Holy See had a mocking look on his face as he left in a huff. After the special envoy returned to the Holy See, he arranged and publicized Jiang Tian and his wife's words. Immediately, more forces and experts were filled with righteous indignation and fought to suppress Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian is just one person. If his life is exchanged for the safety of the whole world, wouldn't that be great? If they don't want to be captured, they will be met with the crazy revenge of the dimensional world. That is equivalent to plunging the whole human race into eternal damnation. Kong Teichu is too selfish. He still can't compare to the great sects like the Holy See and the Brahmin. Kong Teichu should be charged with crimes against humanity. We must eradicate Kong Teichu and his henchmen before the dimensional world invades. Many experts clamored. It was also at this moment that the Holy See and the Brahmin took the opportunity to announce. The former pope, the first bishop in council of the Holy See, the veteran Holy King Saint Laurent, led the 6 great monasteries and the crusade to the east to eliminate Kong Teichu and the Tianqing school. The first disciple of the Brahmin Kasyapa Guru, the current leader of the sect, the little guru of suffering, led the army of believers to the north. Both sides gathered a total of 3,000 experts and rushed to the east. Their momentum soared and their killing intent surged. Chapter 996. There were dozens of Saint Kings and Saints in the Eastern Expedition Army. It was an unprecedented and luxurious lineup. When the news spread, the world was in an uproar. The crusade. The 6 great monasteries. Together with the Brahmin, they're so powerful that they might be able to crush Tianqing school. Kong Teichu's strength is probably not enough. Otherwise, why didn't he go to the battlefield? Many people thought that Jiang Tian and Tianqing school would lose. In the Middle Ages, the crusade had gone to the east 9 times and swept across the entire Eurasian continent. The 6 great monasteries had saints in each monastery. They were as powerful as mortal deities and even earth-level deities. The Brahmins' army was also powerful. With the 3 great factions added together, they were sufficient to challenge the great powers of the present age. They were completely capable of suppressing the young Tianqing sect. Speed was the most important thing in war. The 3 armies quickly entered the Lansong River area of Wuxia and encountered the Tianqing school and the Huaxiaolong formation. Let's go to the Lansong River battlefield and show our attitude. Together with the Holy See, Brahmin and the European reclusive royalty, we'll force Kong Teichu to kneel and admit defeat. There were also many martial artists and spellcasters who thought that Jiang Tian should surrender for the sake of mankind. Everyone should also support the Holy See and Brahmin. For a moment, the 3 top sects in the world were ready to fight. An earth-shattering war broke out and the smell of gunpowder filled the air. All the overlords and forces as well as the superpowers were paying close attention and their hearts were in their throats. Many overlords were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it, as if they had seen a ghost. The Darknet forum was already in an uproar. I never thought that there were so many hidden overlords in this world. I was really a frog at the bottom of a well before. The demon hunter Pulsatilla exclaimed. As Van Helsing's disciple, Pulsatilla Wang was also unrivaled in Europe. But now, compared to so many Saint Kings and half-step sacred venerates, he felt as small as an ant. I knew that there would be a battle between the top 3 orthodoxies in the world, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. This battle will determine the strongest orthodoxy in the world. It will affect both the East and the West, and its influence will be far-reaching. It can be said to be the most important battle in the past 2,000 years. No matter what the outcome is, it will definitely go down in history. Hera sighed meaningfully. It was the most colorful footnote to this world-shaking battle that involved the Eastern and Western orthodoxies. Wuxian Nalan family. Everything was arranged properly. Jiang Tian, however, held Qing'er's hand and said with a gentle smile, "Qing'e, I'm going to the southwest border to meet the scum of the Holy See. Go back to Sidoni's training hall." "I'll go with you," Zhao Xueqing insisted, looking worried. "No. You're pregnant now, so you can't fight. If you go, I'll have to split my attention to protect you. Jiang Tian shook his head and said with a smile, be good. You have to go back to Tianqing School's headquarters. Situ Shao is already on his way. He'll escort you back. Okay, I believe you. My husband is invincible. Zhao Xueqing was a righteous person. Although she was worried about Jiang Tian, she could only suppress her worries in the bottom of her heart. Jiang Tian looked apologetic and said with a smile, also, I might have to go out for a while this time. When the time comes, you'll have to represent the entire Tianqing school. Going out again? Qing'er's eyes were filled with sadness and disappointment. She was not feeling well at the moment and her mood was also affected. Of course, she wanted Jiang Tian to accompany her. Ever since she was pregnant, she had spent less time with Jiang Tian than with him. She did not feel good about it. Cut the weeds and dig up the roots. Jiang Tian smiled bitterly and said, I want to destroy the dimensional worlds behind the two orthodoxies. Actually, Jiang Tian wanted to collect spirit energy revival seeds to save Qing'er and his daughter's lives. However, he did not want to say it out loud and make Qing'er worry. Jiang Tian left behind the Stellar Sky Domain's spirit energy revival seed and gave Qing'er the method to absorb and use it. This way, during the time Jiang Tian was away, this seed could at least prolong her and her child's lives. The child and I will wait for your safe return. Qing'er kissed Jiang Tian's face a few times. She was reluctant to part with him. The couple hugged each other tightly. I heard that it's a third-grade dimensional world. Strength is even more terrifying. You have to be careful. Qing'er gave Jiang Tian a few more instructions before she bade Jiang Tian farewell with tears in her eyes. She took a private plane with Situ Shao and returned to Sidoni. After Qing'er left, a violent killing intent rose from Jiang Tian's body, causing the surrounding temperature to plummet. He said in a cold voice, that's right. With Qing'er's wish fulfilled, I can finally go on a killing spree and completely eradicate the Holy Sea and Brahman. The key is that they should have two passageways that connect the heavenly state and the Thundersound Mountain dimensional world. This time I have to kill my way over no matter what. Feeling Jiang Tian's terrifying killing intent, Nalan Bo, who was beside him, was terrified. He suddenly knelt down and pleaded with tears in his eyes. Master Kong, Nalan Li and the others have already betrayed the Nalan family and are heading to the Lansong River. Let them go. Why are you kneeling? Jiang Tian helped him up and smiled faintly. Nalan Bo wanted to say something but stopped. But after a moment of hesitation he still spoke with tears in his eyes. It turned out that Nalan Li and the others didn't believe that Jiang Tian could defeat the Holy Sea and Brahman at all. So they left without saying goodbye and went to the Lansong River. They only left a letter saying that they were leaving the Nalan family and would never follow Jiang Tian and cause trouble for others. In Nalan Bo's opinion, Nalan Li and the others probably weren't going to start a war with the Holy Sea and Brahman. It was very likely that Nalan Li would beg for mercy from the Holy Sea and Brahman. He would stand on the opposite side of Jiang Tian and fight to the death with Jiang Tian. After hearing this, Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Don't worry, I won't kill them. No matter what, they are Qing'er's family. Nalan Bo hated the behavior of Nalan Li and the others, but he could only sigh helplessly. At this time, even if Jiang Tian had killed Nalan Li and the others, he couldn't blame Jiang Tian. After all, Jiang Tian had given them many chances, but they kept provoking him. With Jiang Tian's strength, he could have crushed them long ago. Grandpa, I'm leaving. Jiang Tian left a soul-devourer doppelganger here and turned into a stream of light that pierced through heaven and earth, flying toward the southwest border. Nalan Li also called the butler and hurried to the airport to chase after Jiang Tian. At the source of the Lansong River in the area of the Tangula Mountains, battles had broken out several times. The river was stained with blood and the land was 10 miles wide. Corpses were piled up everywhere. It was like a scene from hell. In fact, at this stage the Holy Sea, Brahman, Huaxiaolong Formation and Tianqing School had not used their trump cards. At the moment, only the vanguard forces clashed to test each other's strength, but it was already very tragic. The strength of the forces involved and the number of overlords who were injured and killed were far more than the battle between the Tianqing School and the Gathering of Darkness at the North Bay of Sidoni. By now, the Holy Sea and Brahman had lost a saint and 8 immortal state warriors, whose strength was comparable to or even stronger than the Lord of Blood Cain. There were at least a few hundred transcendent state overlords who had been killed or injured. After all, either the Brahmin or the Holy See was more powerful than the Gathering of Darkness. It had to be known that the Blood Clan, werewolves, dark wizards, spellcasters and other dark forces had long been suppressed by the church and Brahmins to the point that they were barely surviving, not daring to come out. It was Nie Mingyuan who rose and gathered them with an iron fist. But the Holy See and Brahmin were different. They were on the bright side and had kept their orthodoxy intact. They had more than 1 billion followers and were as rich as a country. And they had always had special guards and private soldiers, which was not something the Gathering of Darkness could compare with. The Deer Peak in the north of the source of the Lansong River was more than 5,000 meters above sea level. It was the temporary headquarters of the Tianqing School and the Wuxia Long Formation. This type of transcendent struggle between orthodoxies did not involve the imperial court. The various countries would not interfere, allowing them to cross the border. Wuxia had also opened up a battlefield with a radius of dozens of miles, and ordinary people had been urgently evacuated. Before the battle, the two sides had made a contract that neither side would disturb the mortal world or use firearms. However, every country knew that once the first orthodoxy was established, the impact would be far-reaching. The temporary headquarters was built in a dense forest. There were many modern battlefield command systems and communication devices, all of which were from the Sky Army of Sidoni. The commander of this war was Yi Tianren. At the same time, a wave of enemy attacks had just been repelled by the Lansong River. There were bodies and broken limbs everywhere. Chapter 997. Yi Tianren was leading the Tianqing School and the Long Formation heroes to patrol the Lansong River area. He smiled and said, "If you worship their orthodoxy, you will receive blessings in the future. After you die, your soul will enter heaven and West Earth. For thousands of years, have you ever seen a soul ascend to heaven and West Earth? The afterlife is illusory. Placing your happiness on the grace of gods and Buddhas is a coward's move. You have to fight for your own happiness. You have to fight for your own resources. The heavenly star small world wants to plunder Earth. Do you think heaven and West Earth will go easy on them? I once followed Master to Star World. The gods and Buddhas in the sky still beat them up. Master is now the ruler of Heavenly Star and has endless resources. He has broken through several levels." Huqing Tian, Zhao Yuankuan, Wei Faiong, Yizhantian and the others were all excited. Tao Jinjia even cheered. Her beautiful eyes shone brightly as she said, "Did immortal Master Jiang really do it? That's amazing." Master said that Earth is the homeland of the multidimensional worlds, and those so-called immortals are of the same ancestry as us. Yi Tianren smiled proudly and said angrily, "They took spirit chi from ancient Earth. It's fine if they don't return it, but they definitely don't have the right to touch Earth." Those Brahmin and Holy See think highly of themselves and don't do anything productive. But in history, when have they ever stopped the gods and Buddhas when they sent disasters? Yi Tianren's face was full of sarcasm. They think that it's reasonable for the humans on Earth to be killed and starved to death. Because humans are sinful. They will only kneel and kowtow, burn incense and repent forever. But why are humans sinful? Aren't West Earth and Heaven greedy? Are the Holy See and Brahmin clean? In order to protect the religious power and plunder for benefits, they also kill people. Just as he was speaking, suddenly, an old man dressed in red walked out of the dense forest. He had a high nose bridge and deep eyes. He had a head full of silver hair and was slightly bald. He was suffused with holy light as he held the scepter in his hand. He smiled and said, "Your Excellency Deva is right. However, if the gods were to send a disaster like the Great Flood of prehistoric times or the plague of insects and locusts in Egypt, would you be able to withstand it?" Favorite of the Pope, First Bishop and Council of the Holy See of the Vatican, Saint Laurent. Many experts behind Yi Tianren exclaimed in surprise. "Why should I resist?" Yi Tianren's fighting spirit surged. He flung his sleeves and snorted coldly. "Whoever brings us disaster will just kill them. When Heavenly Country sent disaster, it killed Heavenly Country. When West Earth sent disaster, it shattered West Earth. Aren't they just gods and Buddhas? Just lift it." Saint Laurent smiled but didn't say anything. His eyes were full of mockery as if Yi Tianren was extremely stupid. Behind him, a monk in linen clothes slowly walked out. This elder had the skin of a chicken and the head of a crane. His body was shriveled and extremely old. He was draped in linen clothes that looked like sheets, revealing his blade-like ribs. He looked like a holy hero as he smiled and said, "Junior brother Deva, have you eaten?" The disciple of Kasyapa Guru, the little guru of suffering. Someone exclaimed. Why did he call Senior Deva Brother Deva? Saki Haisha was puzzled. My father used to cultivate in Brahmin. According to my father, this person is already 400 years old. Xianxia explained as he stared at the little guru of suffering with a burning gaze. In Brahmin there was a saying of the reincarnation of a living god. Kasyapa Guru was the reincarnation of a living god. He was as high as the patriarch. On normal days, the little guru of suffering was in charge of the entire sect. He was equivalent to the current sect lord and hierarch. Brother Deva, you're old and tired. Why are you here? Yi Tianren smiled. Wuxia is a demon. We have to get rid of him. This old man will not retreat until he succeeds. The little guru of suffering put his palms together and smiled. Brother Deva, you should eat more. You won't have the chance to eat in the future. In the early years of the Republic of China, I saw the flames of war. My heart was in pain. I went to Brahman to study the Dharma and find the way to freedom. We talked through the night and confirmed each other's knowledge. We can be considered as fellow disciples. Back off, I won't kill you. Heavenly Yi laughed and said with a sharp look in his eyes, that's right. But you should remember to eat when you go back. Eat more of the food of the mortal world. Don't forget that you are asking for the fate of the mortal world. The food you eat is also the food of the earth. Eat more and taste more of the mortal world. Don't let yourself live too high and too far away. High and far away is to avoid vulgarity. Suffering smiled proudly. We believe in God and asceticism. We have to stay away from the disturbances of the world. If we are tainted, it will be difficult for us to escape. Back then, when you were meditating in Brahman, I told you that if you want to be quiet and become a god, you have to be detached from worldly affairs. You have to be silent in body and mind. Can you become a true god? Yi Tianren sneered. The little guru of suffering hesitated. Saint Laurent smiled and said, it's not impossible for us to enter heavenly kingdom and west earth. If we don't believe in God, God will send disaster. Your Excellency Deva and your master Kong Techu, shouldn't you think about the people of the world? Do you know how many lost civilizations in history were destroyed by the hands of the gods of heavenly kingdom? Some legends are just false bravado. Yi Tianren sneered. Here is a scripture called Ancient Catastrophe Scroll. It was unearthed in Europe 30,000 years ago. It recorded the scene of the disaster that befell heavenly kingdom. Saint Laurent handed over an ancient Hebrew parchment scroll and said, Father, be careful. Xianxia and the others warned. Don't worry. Yi Tianren took the scroll and flipped through it page by page. He used to live in the Lulichang area of Yanjin in the late Qing dynasty and worked as a librarian in the library of Yanjin University. He used to be friends with Li Ji, Chen Yinka, Wu Mi and other archaeologists and scholars. He was influenced by them and learned Chinese and Western medicine. He could recognize all kinds of ancient words, such as oracle bone inscriptions, Sanskrit, Hebrew. He was no less than a great scholar and a master of the Republic of China. Yi Tianren flipped through the pages slowly. Saint Laurent and the little guru of suffering next to him didn't urge him. Saint Roland even explained in a tepid tone, that's right. Atlantis, the Lemuria of the Pacific tropics, ancient Egypt and other civilizations were all destroyed by heavenly kingdom and West Earth because they didn't believe in God. Your Excellency, if you think about the people in the world, you should know how to decide, right? How to decide. According to your thinking, isn't it the same as kneeling and surrendering? Yi Tianren returned the scroll and sneered disdainfully. Then he sighed and said leisurely, I experienced the Great Drought of 1942 in the Central Plains. Millions of people left their homes and fled for their lives, exchanging children for food. At that time, there were missionaries who urged people to believe in the Holy See. Countless starving people knelt and begged God for food and rain. But it didn't rain and there was no food. In the end, the starving people died. The Central Plains was empty. From then on, I knew that people can't rely on God. They have to rely on themselves to fight for happiness. Now Wuxia doesn't believe in the Holy See or Brahman, but everyone has clothes to wear, food to eat and meat to eat. There are planes and aircraft carriers. Even if there are natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods and snowstorms, we will unite and overcome the difficulties together. It's impossible for people to die. Fellow Taoists, we Wuxia people don't believe in God. We only believe in ourselves. We believe in our own hands. We believe that hard work can be exchanged for a good harvest. In the face of invasion, we believe that as long as we dare to draw our swords, we will definitely be able to exchange for peace. We also believe that our fate is in our own hands, not God or heaven. Your Excellency, please reconsider. You have to let your master Kong Techu reconsider. Saint Laurent, the bishop in council, bowed and said, "If my master was alarmed and took action, your holy see would have been trampled to death." Yi Tianren laughed. "Devil, this is what a devil is." The little guru of suffering shouted angrily. "If you want faith, that's fine too." Yi Tianren shouted coldly. "Go back to your Ganges in Vatican. What are you doing here in Wuxia? Are you forcing us to believe as well? What kind of logic is that?" "We came to Wuxia to preach and eliminate the devil," the little guru of suffering said with a solemn expression. Saint Laurent nodded and said slowly, "You have fallen too deeply into the devil's path. You need faith to purify you." "What is the devil's path? Where is the devil's path?" Yi Tianren mocked. "Kong Techu is the devil's path. You are also the devil's path. If you don't believe in God, you are the devil's path. If you don't have faith, you are the devil's path." The little guru of suffering said coldly, "Today we are going to eliminate the devil's path and kill you all." Everyone looked around. Abbots, ascetics, crusade generals, missionaries, ascetics and even some overlords from the dark world came from all directions. There were more than 3,000 people. They were so dense that they covered the sky and the sun, surrounding Yi Tianren and the others in the center. "You said that you won't be tainted by the secular world. In the end you still want to fight. You should have said so earlier." Yi Tianren's murderous aura suddenly rose to the sky. He snorted coldly. "I thought you were going to follow the rules of the martial arts world and fight one-on-one. I didn't expect you to play tricks on the battlefield too. There are quite a lot of people here." Saint Laurent shook his head and said, "We have no choice. Please forgive us, Your Excellency." Little guru of suffering, fellow cultivators, let's send Your Excellency and the people of Tianqing School to heaven together. You think you can scare us with so many people? If you want to fight, then let's fight." Yi Tianren snorted coldly. Instantly, the area within a radius of 10 miles was filled with killing intent. It was as if the air had frozen. Chapter 998. Holy light emanated from the Holy Sea's powerhouses, while Brahmin disciples' Sanskrit power surged. Holy light condensed behind their backs, and their auras swallowed mountains and rivers. The Holy See and Brahmin had been around for a long time, even longer than the Kunlun sect. Tianqing School was even younger. The Holy See was monotheistic and only believed in the God of heaven. The Brahmin, on the other hand, believed in many gods. They worshipped all kinds of natural gods, but they were also monotheistic. In their teachings, many natural gods were under the command of the mysterious power called Brahman, and obeyed the will of Brahman. Blessings of the God of heaven, come. The overlords of the Holy See looked pious and drew a cross in front of their chests. Suddenly, holy light gushed out and filled the air. The holy light condensed and formed all kinds of holy objects of the gods. Holy grails, holy spears, thorny flower, holy crowns, crosses, holy shields and long swords. The Brahmin were different. Many overlords were chanting spells quickly. The Brahmin power condensed into the statues of the gods recorded in the Brahmin scriptures. Some had human heads and snake bodies, some had bull heads and horse faces, some had 3 heads and 6 arms, some had elephant trunks and human faces, and some had turtle backs and bamboo staffs. There were all kinds of natural gods that they worshipped. On the other hand, the cultivators of Wuxia were in a completely different state. All of them had condensed their qi into weapons. They had completely relied on their own cultivation. Or they relied on weapons to condense qi weapons to enhance the effect. Zhao Yunkuan shouted angrily and stomped his foot. A pair of qi fists condensed in front of him as if they were solid. Then spirit qi condensed into a shield. Hu Qingtian was in charge of the Heavenly Troop and the Heavenly Strategy Battalion. His god-killing spear shook. Thick true essence rolled and rubbed against each other, forming a golden warrior. He was riding a horse with a tiger seal and a military seal on his waist. He held a shield and a long spear in his hand. His eyes were burning with anger and his face was also Wuxia Tian's. Xin Mange was in charge of alchemy. Her face turned cold and her jade-white right hand shook. A golden cauldron mysterious phenomenon formed by veritable essence energy floated up in front of Zhou Xian. However, it was as heavy as a mountain. Adept Redleaf was in charge of the weapon refinement hall. His true essence gushed out and formed a giant black hammer with flames coiling around it. As the law enforcement elder, Sasaki Ocean Sand was in charge of the sex punishment and meritorious service evaluation. This woman's tachi swept out and her breath gushed out. What she transformed into was not a god but a scale and a ruler. Kill! Wolf King Alexander roared angrily. Suddenly, its body grew taller and its hair stood out, forming a full moon shadow in front of it. The moonlight spread out and a wild wolf that was more than 10 meters tall howled at the moon. Huang Linger, who had just come out of seclusion, did not say a word. She raised her eyebrows, turned around and waved the heavenly source wooden staff repeatedly. Suddenly, multicolored true essence gushed out from his body, constantly changing. Colorful flowers fluttered in the wind and green branches swayed around him. Tang Linglong pinched her fingers together and shouted. Sword chi burst out. Clang 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 clang. Hundreds of flying swords floated around her like a school of silver fish. This was the crystallization of their years of cultivation since the establishment of Tianqing School. Almost all of them could condense their chi forms, and their apparitions had spirituality, almost like a second primordial spirit. From this, it could be seen that Tianqing School was different from the Holy See and Brahmin. The Holy See and Brahmin believed in gods, and the apparitions behind them were all apparitions of gods or things used by gods. Everyone in Tianqing School, on the other hand, used their own special physiques, specialties, or a certain profession under their jurisdiction to create apparition weapons. They each had their own specialties and strengths. Applying what he had learned, combining knowledge with action. They did not seek help from gods or Buddhas but sought help from themselves. There was never a savior, nor did they rely on gods or emperors. What kind of orthodoxy is Tianqing School? A Brahmin elder with drooping ears and shoulders shouted angrily. What kind of nonsense are they cultivating? They even took in wild beasts like the wolf clan as their subordinates. They've really fallen into the devil's path. They're all a bunch of unorthodox demons who don't respect gods. My master once said that demons may not be evil and humans may not be good. Everything depends on your actions. If you're of one mind, you're my kind. Yi Tianren smiled. Wolf King Alexander serves humans and guards Sidoni. Why don't we accept him? We don't respect gods? In fact, why should we respect gods? We're all doing it with our own abilities. Relying on gods and Buddhas is unorthodox. We don't respect gods. Everything can be used. Mortals who practice their own professions to the extreme are gods themselves. This is the purpose of Tianqing School. Haha, according to you, we're inferior to ordinary people even if we cultivate. Instead, we have to work for mortals. St. Lawrence's eyes were disdainful as he snorted coldly. That's right. My master once said that the great Tao is nothing more than the daily use of the common people. Heavenly Yi was calm and composed. He chuckled and said, there's nothing noble about being a cultivator. The path of saints is just to let everyone know. Otherwise, even if it's a heaven-defying study, it's just empty talk. The way of heaven is to take from the surplus and make up for the deficiency. The strong should fight to protect the weak. The hot blood of the strong should also flow for the weak. Everyone, this is the great love of the world. It's not as hypocritical as you people who use the gods to scare the people. Are you touched by the purpose of Tianqing School? Why don't you turn over a new leaf and join our Tianqing School? Ah, Yi Tianren, you don't respect gods and still dream of becoming gods. You've fallen too deeply into the path of demons. Saint Laurent laughed. One of the crusade generals in the crowd snorted coldly. Kill. As soon as the words came out, true essence erupted. Holy light filled the air, energy surged and killing intent soared into the sky. The cold wind suddenly became bone-chilling. A battle was about to break out. Kill. Violent roars came and immediately thunder shook the sky. The sound shook 10 kilometers. The battle broke out in an instant. In an instant, violent waves of air rushed in all directions and razed the forest to the ground. The trees that could be hugged by a person were suddenly turned into powder. Boulders rolled on the ground like millstones. This battle was far more intense than the battle between Tianqing School and the Covenant of Darkness. Although the Covenant of Darkness had many powerhouses, compared to the Holy See and Brahmin orthodoxies, there were still many sage kings here. After nearly a year of recuperation, Tianqing School's strength was not what it used to be. Everyone had achieved something. When the battle started, blood splattered on the spot. Powerhouses fell one after another. The Brahmin guardian elder with droopy ears and shoulders immediately went to find the Moon Wolf King. The collision of the two mortal deity powerhouses caused sparks to fly. The mountains and rivers collapsed and the sun and moon dimmed. The ascetic monk with droopy ears and shoulders was 300 years old. He was proficient in teaching and spells. He worshipped, and communicated with the bloodthirsty golden-scaled serpent god. The Moon Wolf King used to lead the Russian Winter Army and was a close friend of the Russian Emperor. He had been on the battlefield all his life and had gone through hundreds of battles. He had annihilated families, armies, sects and countries. After years of careful guidance from Jiang Tian and his wife, he had reached the level of mortal deity and was the mainstay of the Tianqing school. As soon as the Moon Wolf King's moon turbine clashed with the serpent god's mystic art, moonlight gushed out and formed a sharp moon-shaped turbine surrounded by blade auras and spears. These strange phenomena seemed to be real, but they were all formed from Alexander's life essence. A god with a human head and a snake body with 4 arms was entrenched in a sea of blood and bones. Its golden scales were shining and it was a dozen meters tall. The golden-scaled serpent god used to be the long-eared Brahmin guardian elder. Compared to the mighty serpent god, he was much smaller. The sea of blood filled with floating corpses was broken through by a 6-meter-tall violent figure. Demonic aura filled the sky as demonic winds blew. It was the moon-worshipping Wolf King riding on the azure wolf avatar. I don't believe in God. I don't worship the moon. I am the wolf god. I am God. Die. Alexander bared his teeth and his face was fierce, cruel and bloodthirsty. He held the moon turbine in his hand and kept shooting out moonlight weapons to destroy everything. The azure wolf avatar seemed to be real. It stepped on the moonlight and its green eyes shot out cold light. How dare you call yourself a god? How dare you blaspheme the messenger of God? The long-eared guardian elder sneered. His hands formed 1,000 lotus hand seal and he chanted a spell in a loud and clear voice. He cast 2 hand seals at the moon-worshipping Wolf King. The golden-scaled serpent god twisted its waist and threw 2 punches at the Moon Wolf King. Its long tail swept across the sky like a missile and was powerful enough to crush a battleship. Unexpectedly, the Moon Wolf King didn't dodge and allowed the 2 punches to hit his head and shoulders. He was sent flying more than 10 meters away by the tail. However, he twisted his waist and stabilized himself. The huge force under his feet crushed the rocks and sent sparks flying. He didn't stop and closed in on the long-eared guardian elder. He shook his arms and the moon turbine flew out. The moonlight turned into sabers, spears, shields, swords and hammers. Sabers, spears, shields, swords and hammers. A moonlight saber cut off the long-eared guardian elder's hands. A long spear pierced through his lower abdomen. A shield smashed his skull. A sword light slit his throat, and a huge hammer hammered his back. Beside them, the azure wolf avatar and the golden-scaled serpent god were fighting. The sea of blood surged and bones flew. Moonlight gushed out and thunder rumbled. You didn't dodge? The long-eared guardian elder was like a bloody gourd. He was lifted in the air by the Moon Wolf King's spear. His head exploded and he spat out blood. In midair, another huge shield came crashing down, smashing him into a pulp of flesh and bones. Idiot! On the battlefield, victory or defeat is decided by 1 or 2 moves. What's there to dodge? The battlefield is a killing technique. Competing with you in spells is like using my weakness to attack your strength. The Moon Wolf King laughed maniacally, but he kept spitting out blood. Chapter 999. The big-eared guardian elder's incantation merged with the statue and borrowed the power of the believer's faith. He was as strong as a mountain. The golden-scaled serpent god's 2 punches and tail had almost destroyed his internal organs. At least 3 of his ribs were broken and his shoulder was shattered. He was in so much pain that he grimaced. Old wolf, catch. Xianxia flicked her finger and a healing and pain-relieving pill shot over. Thank you, Miss Mange. The moon-worshipping wolf king opened his mouth wide and swallowed the pill. Huang Linger's spiritual wood wedges fell like rain, piercing a crusade general into a sieve and nailing him to the ground. Then she turned around and pointed the Tianyuan wooden stick at the wolf king. Life creation. Boundless vitality emerged from the tip of the Tianyuan wooden stick and turned into green branches that entered the moon-worshipping wolf king's wounds. In just 3 breaths, the moon-worshipping wolf king's wounds healed quickly. Suddenly, a holy light cross fell from the sky. It was at least 30 meters long and pressed the moon-worshipping wolf king to the ground with a thud. An abbot charged over. He was a half-step holy king. He held an ancient scripture in his left hand and drew a cross in front of his chest. As his right hand drew down, holy light crosses flew out of his chest. They were dazzling and there were shadows of angels dancing around them. The holy light cross was as heavy as a mountain and pressed the moon-worshipping wolf king to the ground. His bones were broken and he spat out blood. 4-legged, hairy beast. You were once chased away by the holy sea and went into hiding. How dare you challenge us now? What did Kong Techu give you to make you work so hard for him? The abbot sneered as he suppressed the wolf king. His eyes were filled with disdain. When did the Tianqing school offend you? Why did the Holy See want to kill us? St. Paul committed heinous crimes and killed countless families. You call that loving the world as your own? Tang Linglong roared, her jade-like hands fluttering as she flicked her fingers. Flying swords tore through the air like bolts of lightning. They were densely packed and pierced towards the abbot. Shield of holy light, block for me. How can Wuxia's flying sword hurt me? The abbot opened his right hand and dazzling holy light gushed out from his palm, forming a shield of light, intending to block the flying sword. Ding ding dang dang. Sparks flew in all directions as if a rainstorm was hitting a banana leaf. The abbot was forced to retreat continuously. His body trembled violently and he almost fell down. The corner of his mouth was stained with blood. Unexpectedly, a spear tore through the air like it could pierce through the sun and moon, piercing through the abbot's chest. It was Hu Qingtian's champion avatar that had attacked, directly piercing through the abbot's heart. Hu Qingtian, I will judge you with the fate of the gods. Go to hell. Slay the evil. Kill these Chinese devils who don't believe in God. Let them enter purgatory. Crash. The abbots of the top monasteries under the Holy See were all saints, far surpassing the immortal state. Their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. They each held a cross-light sword and flew in the air, surrounding Hu Qingtian. They had used the sacred art of the Holy See, the cross-light sword art. In an instant the sword light shot into the sky. The holy light was dazzling and extremely sharp. It was indeed the top sword art of the Holy See. Hu Qingtian's avatar was shattered. He was forced to retreat, his chest stained with blood. Sisterling, lend me some fire. Xianxia stepped on the air and soared several hundred meters into the sky like a swallow leaping into the water. She shouted and suddenly smashed down with her hands. In an instant, a true essence furnace with a radius of 10 meters descended from the sky and enveloped the 3 abbots. The true essence furnace was taught to her by Jiang Tian. It was an evolution of the great sun furnace of the sky-swallowing demonic art. Xianxia was only at the late stage of qi refinement. She could form the furnace, but it would be difficult for her to make it powerful. She needed to borrow external forces. Here it comes. Huang Linger had been cultivating in seclusion for the past few days. She had already reached the foundation establishment level and had almost reached the phenomenal success level of the divine art of withering glory. She yelled and waved the Tianyuan wooden stick. Beams of spirit wood qi as thick as an arm turned into towering trees, logs and branches and flew into the furnace. Damn it, you old farts are still alive. You must be a few hundred years old. I can use you to make a peerless elixir. Xinmangu cursed and sneered. She operated her cultivation method and stimulated her true essence. Boom. The spirit wood qi exploded in the furnace and turned into flames. The 3 abbots screamed and struggled on the ground. They were burned to ashes in a blink. Clang. Suddenly, a leader of the crusade rushed over. He swung his giant hammer and smashed Xianxia dozens of meters away. Kill this demoness. A few Brahmin cultivators immediately surrounded Xianxia and attacked her with all kinds of secret techniques. 10 kilometers away from the battlefield on a mountain called Qingsong Peak, near Deer Peak. Many stern-looking Wuxia experts were standing on top of the mountain. Some of them looked at the battlefield through the screen of the battlefield command system. Some looked directly at the battlefield at Landsong River. There were men and women, old and young. There were hundreds of them. Zhou Xian and Lady Wu were among them. However, the strength of those two people was not the strongest. The one with the most powerful aura was a young man wearing bronze armor and holding a long halberd. He was tall and had a standard square face. He had a wide forehead and cheeks, high cheekbones and a thick chin. He had 2 large mustaches on his upper lip. His facial features were rough and his limbs were thick. He looked like a terracotta soldier from the Qin dynasty. He was only in his 20s and stood motionless. However, his gaze was arrogant and disdainful. His violent, imposing aura that was lofty like a mountain and swept through the surroundings suppressed everyone to the point they lowered their heads. He was an earth-level deity cultivator of the royal family. Young Master Ing Kong Teichu has said that we don't need to interfere with the reclusive royalty. Why should we meddle in other people's business? Zhou Xian looked at the man in bronze armor with fear. He waved his folding fan and said with a smile. This man was the descendant of the Qin dynasty, the leader of the younger generation of the Ing family, Ing Su. Not only was he powerful and talented, but he was also the leader of Wuxia's reclusive royalty alliance. He had a high position and was a man of his word. Not to mention Zhou Xian, even his father, the head of the Jin family, Jin Wanxiong, had to treat him with respect. Kong Teichu is too arrogant, isn't he? How can he not know what's good for him? Ing Su raised his thick eyebrows and suppressed his anger. His words were like thunder in spring. Every single word rumbled like a cannonball, and it shook the surrounding trees to the point they rustled as if they were being sliced apart by a gale. His eyes were cold and his temperament was wild like a peerless general. He shouted angrily. Now, except for the Holy See and the Brahmin, the reclusive royalty of Wuxia has no reason to stand by and do nothing. Are we going to let them destroy our homeland? He turned his head and glanced at Jin Zixuan in a daze as he questioned, why? What? Is Kong Teichu afraid that our reclusive royalty will rob him of his benefits? The Ing family's action is to protect Wuxia, okay? Did you say that clearly? Zhou Xian felt a chill run down his spine when he was glanced at like a cold knife, but he still insisted. Of course I said it clearly. We took action for the sake of the common people and the safety of Wuxia, he said with a hoodlum face. But Kong Teichu is too arrogant. He has this confidence. In short, the Jin family and the Li family plan to stand by and do nothing. At this time, Naylan Li and the others also fanned the flames and complained about Jiang Tian's atrocities. Naturally, they wouldn't say that Zhou Xian coveted Sidoni. In their mouths, Jiang Tian became a supercilious and arrogant madman who didn't know what was good for him. Young Master Ing Su, in my opinion, Kong Teichu doesn't put you in his eyes at all. He wants to take this opportunity to show off his strength and suppress our reclusive royalty. He even wants to trample us under his feet. Naran Qinghe moved to Ing Su's side and smiled like a flower. Although her words were soft and gentle, they were vicious and murderous. Bitch, get lost. The reclusive royalty is being discussed. Since when is it your turn to interrupt? Lady Wu shouted at the woman and then waved her sharp knives. He was eager to try. She smiled and said, Ing Su, in my opinion, let's not care about Kong Teichu's opinion. Anyway, the enemy is right in front of us. How can we let them go? Let's just kill them directly. Lady Wu, why are you so cheap? Kong Teichu is so arrogant. Let's see how long he can be arrogant. In the crowd, a young man in a monk's robe said arrogantly. He seemed to be full of dissatisfaction with Jiang Tian. Look, their army of 3,000 is completely beating Tianqing School to the point that they can't fight back. Chapter 1000. This man was only 27 or 28 years old. His forehead was bulging, his face was covered with spots, and his beard was sparse. His eyes were bright and his eyebrows were thick and straight. His nose was big and his nostrils were upturned. His ears were long, almost reaching his shoulders. His mouth was big and wide and his chin was much more prominent than his forehead. His appearance made people feel that he was lofty, majestic, fierce, cold, and ungrateful. This man was a descendant of the Zhou family, the famous royal family Zhou Xian. After the fall of the Ming dynasty, the descendants of the Zhou family had to go to Huangjue Temple as disciples. In fact, Huangjue Temple was not a small temple like the legends said. It was a hidden sect. Zhu Yuanzhang had also become a monk there. They kept a low profile but they were very powerful. Zhou Xiaoqian was now in the human immortal realm. His aura was only slightly weaker than Ying Su's, but he was stronger than Zhou Xian and Lady Wu. If he showed his strength and could compete with the sect master, he would definitely shock the world. Zhou Xiaoqian, what's the meaning of Kong Teichu's sarcastic remarks? Madame Wu Yaonang's face was filled with anger. What if the Huaxia Long formation and Tianqing school can't hold on? Then, the Holy See or the Brahmin will become the #1 orthodoxy, and the people of Huaxia will have to worship them? But Kong Teichu has already offended the people of the Stellar Sky domain. Do you think he has a way to survive? He will die sooner or later. A trace of fear flashed across the face of the Li family's crown prince, Li Guangkou, and he said coldly, "Our ancestors were all helped by the dimensional world. We are their agents. We should declare war on Kong Teichu. Stop making a ruckus." Yingxi was annoyed. He waved his hand and shouted angrily, "Let's wait and see. If Yi Tianren and the others can hold on, then let's mind our own business. Go home and eat mutton steamed buns. Damn it, we've been fighting for days and nights, I'm starving." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell into dead silence. No one dared to say a word as they quietly watched the battlefield. The situation of the battle became even more tragic. Tianqing School and Huaxia Long Formation were heavily surrounded and were even more passive. Beside the Lansong River, a great battle broke out. Experts from both sides fell like rain. The bishops of the Holy See, the abbots, and the generals of the crusade all stepped into the air, brandishing their weapons and spitting out holy light, stopping Huqing Tian, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yunkuan, Huang Linger, Tang Linglong, and Shen Mange. The priests, protectors, elders, and ascetic monks of the Brahmin manifested their divine powers and fought with the experts of the Long Formation and the Huaxia Martial Arts Alliance. They had the advantage in numbers. 3,000 people surrounded the experts of Huaxia, who had less than 100 people, and gradually gained the upper hand. However, they bypassed Yi Tianren. Yi Tianren looked sideways. Saint Laurent and the little guru of suffering, one holding a scepter and a cross, the other holding a Buddhist staff and an alms bowl, approached him. "Your Excellency, we have no choice but to offend you since you're so stubborn." The suffering little master glared at him like a Vajra and shouted coldly. He no longer called him junior brother, which meant that he had cut off the friendship of the past and was going to kill. "Deity slaying sword, kill!" Yi Tianren shouted and his body shook. Suddenly the sword Qi soared 1,000 meters into the sky. The sun and the moon dimmed, the wind and the clouds changed color, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The broken iron sword on his back cried and jumped out of its sheath, turning into a bright green light about 100 meters long. It crossed 1,000 meters and slashed toward the two like a green rainbow. Saint Laurent stepped on the holy light and waved the cross in his hand. With a clang, he repelled the flying sword and said coldly, "Your Excellency, you're indeed amazing. You're almost the mighty immortal in the ancient legends of Huaxia. Unfortunately, the path to the stars has been cut off. You're not a reclusive royalty, so you have no chance to enter your immortal ruins. So, you can't become a real deity or immortal in your life. Why don't you believe in the Holy See and have a chance to ascend to heaven? In your dreams." Yi Tianren attacked again and beat Saint Laurent back. "You're so stubborn. This old man is useless. I've practiced the 13 chapters of the Holy See, but I've only mastered half of the last chapter. Today, I'll use this incomplete chapter to challenge your Excellency's Huaxia swordsmanship." Saint Laurent waved the cross, and the power of the holy light surged and turned into a cross-light sword, attacking Yi Tianren. The alms bowl in the little guru of suffering's hand flew up and covered the ground. A golden light gushed out, and in the golden light there were gods everywhere. At the top were Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu. There were all kinds of gods below, all of them condensed from Brahman power. The little guru of suffering sneered. "Kasaipa Guru once taught me the 3 forms divine technique, and now I've mastered it. Today this old man is here to challenge your Excellency's deity-slaying sword. Let's see if you can kill God." The little guru of suffering and the first bishop in council, Saint Laurent, were both brilliant figures in the Middle Ages. They were only one step away from becoming saints and immortals. If it weren't for the dimension behind them that ordered them to monitor Earth, they would have become immortals and gods long ago. Although Yi Tianren was a later generation, he had great opportunities. He was well versed in Confucianism, Buddhism and Taoism. He was once the world walker of the Kunlun sect, and also went to Brahman, Holy See and Buddhism to study and visit. He founded the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade and fought on the battlefield. He also entered Hongmeng and learned the deity-slaying sword technique. In the end he was enlightened by Jiang Tian. At this time he was well versed in martial arts, spells and cultivation. He was definitely one of the most powerful people in this era on this planet. The moment the three of them fought, the sky darkened, the void shattered and rocks flew everywhere. The green sword light covered 10 miles and the holy light filled the mountains. The power of Brahman seemed to break through the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Before this, with the strength of Saint Laurent and the little guru of suffering, or even just one of them, they could completely crush Yi Tianren, let alone working together. But now the two of them couldn't gain the upper hand at all. Whoosh! The sword light flashed and the light of the East Sea was like 1,000 waves. The sword light overlapped and swept over like a raging wave. It crushed Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu into pieces. It blasted the golden light and hit the little guru of suffering. Whoosh! Saint Laurent waved his scepter and condensed many shields to block. At the same time, the holy light under his feet spread and his body swayed, retreating a few hundred meters away. The little guru of suffering vomited blood. His clothes were torn and he flew backward. His face was full of shock and disbelief. Yi Tianren, you have only been in seclusion for 20 years. How did you become so powerful? You have reached the level of divine immortal? Your strength is too terrifying. Saint Laurent was also afraid. It was as if he had met Yi Tianren for the first time. More than 20 years ago, before Yi Tianren went into seclusion, he had also visited the Holy See once to exchange holy arts and Taoist techniques. The person in charge of receiving him was Saint Laurent. At that time, Saint Laurent thought that he had the strength to suppress Yi Tianren. But now he had no confidence at all. My rapid improvement this time was not because of my seclusion, but because of Master's guidance. Both of you give up your weapons and surrender. You are no match for the heroes of Tianqing School and Wuxia. Yi Tianren held the broken iron sword in his hand and looked fierce. He had a strict aura that one man could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. Saint Laurent, I will leave it to you to kill Yi Tianren. The little guru of suffering sneered and turned to attack the other heroes of Wuxia. Suddenly, the pressure on the heroes of Wuxia, who were already deep in the enemy group and struggling to hold on, doubled. God loves the world. Today I summon the spirit of true God. Son of true God, Saint Adam, please come to my body and honor my life. Saint Laurent's face turned cold. He held the cross that had turned into a cross-light sword and prayed devoutly. Suddenly holy light filled the air. The sword light moved in a wonderful rhythm. It was holy and glorious as if it did not belong to this world at all. He looked fierce and shouted, "Lowly blasphemer, kneel at the feet of God and repent." Suddenly, from the depths of the sky, a vast, holy and mighty aura turned into a pillar of holy light that penetrated the sky and the earth. It pierced through the clouds and split the sky, piercing through and enveloping Saint Laurent. Saint Laurent had undergone a strange change. A terrifying change. Fuck him, he is inviting God. On Qingsong Peak, Ing Su stared at Saint Laurent like cold lightning. Suddenly his body shook and he shouted as if he was quarreling. Inviting God? Divine beating technique. Is there really a God in the Western Holy See? Hiss. There really is. Everyone looked over and their faces were filled with terror. They were shocked and gasped in unison. Chapter 1001. Wuxia's spirit possession technique was also known as the invocation technique. The Western Holy See technique was known as the summoning of heroic spirits. The names were different but the essence was the same. Legend had it that there were countless immortals in the greater thousand worlds. This secret technique used a special unknown secret technique, incantation and ritual to communicate with the immortals. Then one would borrow the immortal's power to possess the body. No martial arts or spells could compare to it. Wuxia's spirit possession technique or the invocation technique had also declined. For example, in the northeastern region, there was a widespread practice of jumping gods and inviting gods to possess one's body. Usually it was a hedgehog, snake, or weasel that had cultivated into a spirit. It was called inviting yellow immortal, willow immortal, rat immortal, and so on. They weren't true gods yet, but they already had a certain level of magic power and could cure diseases and avoid disasters. Once a true god's heroic spirit was summoned, it was a power that didn't belong to this world. Sacred arts, Sanskrit martial arts, spells, and so on had to stand aside. As for traditional martial arts and combat arts, they weren't even worth mentioning. Under the shroud of holy light, St. Lawrence's body also erupted with dazzling holy light, and a demonic vertical eye appeared between his eyebrows. At this time the holy power all over his body had become 10 times, 100 times richer. His whole body was bright as if it was made of strange metal. He seemed to have become a different person. His facial features were distorted and he looked even more holy and divine. Dazzling light shone like the sun in the sky. Waves of hair-raising power burst out and suppressed the area within a few kilometers. Even Ying Su and the others could feel it. Plang. St. Laurent covered Yi Tianren with his palm. Endless holy light turned into a blazing sea of flames and intertwined to form the divine punishment law. It was like the Milky Way hanging upside down as it smashed down. Yi Tianren met it with his sword, but it immediately shattered. He spat out blood and flew backward. Yi Tianren rose into the air and stood proudly with his sword. He shouted, "The enemy is ferocious. Everyone retreat. I'll cover you." Retreat. All of a sudden many experts from the Tianqing school and the Huaxiaolong formation displayed their unique skills and killed hundreds of people in a row, forcibly tearing a gap in the encirclement. Then they turned into streaks of light and ran in the direction of Deer Peak. Is the spirit of a true god so powerful? He can suppress the earth immortal Yidern. At this moment cries of surprise rang out on Pine Peak. Everyone had different reactions. "Ha Kong Techu, oh Kong Techu, you ignored my cooperation plan and underestimated the Holy See and the Brahmin. You are indeed ignorant. Now that the true God has descended and possessed the body of a heroic spirit, I'm afraid that Tianqing School and Huaxiaolong formation will be completely wiped out. It's good that they are destroyed. Our Aizen-Joro family may be restored. Huaxia can't live without an emperor." Zhou Xian, Nailan Li and Naran Qinghe were excited, but their eyes were filled with gloating and the corners of their mouths were twitching crazily. Prepare for battle. Tianqing School and Huaxiaolong formation can't hold on anymore. Ying Su's imperial aura soared. His body was surrounded by colorful light and auspicious dragon qi, as if he was roaring loudly. At this critical moment he was still very righteous. Moreover, the Ying family had always been loyal and straightforward. When the Qin emperor rushed out of Tong Pass to destroy the 6 states and unify the world, they were proud, but Huaxia was their home. "Young mastering, if we attack now it's very likely that we will be completely wiped out." Zhu Xiaoqin sneered and said disdainfully, "If Kong Techu is so capable, why doesn't he fight himself? We've shed blood and sacrificed countless lives. He's hiding behind us but he's still talking nonsense. What kind of ability is that? I'm not fighting." Li Guangkol of the Li family also shook his head and said, "The Li family is not fighting either. It's not like the Li family is in charge now. Didn't Kong Techu say that he's going to take on 2 orthodoxies alone and not let us meddle in other people's business? Since he has the ability to deal with it, let's just watch the show." Kong Techu is arrogant and overconfident. Let's see how long he can be arrogant for. You're not fighting? You're not going to help? Ying Su was a little confused. He looked at the reclusive royalty and the dragon protection lineage in surprise. "They've what?" Zhou Xian said disdainfully. "Kong Techu will not cooperate with us. What's more, he has offended the immortals of the Stellar Sky Domain. He will die sooner or later." Stellar Sky Domain, haha, ruins of immortals. Immortals? Ying Su's eyes widened and his expression was complicated. At this moment he was a little impressed by Jiang Tian. Legend had it that the Ying family's ancestor Qin Shi Huang was manipulated by the dimensional world like a puppet. Qin Shi Huang sent Su Fu and 2,000 boys and girls to the east in search of the elixir of immortality to resist the control of the ruins of immortality and the dimensional world. However, Qin Shi Huang still failed. Legend had it that when he was in the process of casting the gods of famous mountains to seek immortality, the East Patrol's sun warrior Bo Langsha was assassinated. That assassin used a giant hammer that weighed hundreds of kilograms to smash his car. At that time, a meteorite fell from the sky with the words, "The first emperor died and the land divided," engraved on it. There was also an immortal who shouted, "This year the ancestral dragon dies," and attacked Qin Shi Huang. The Ying family knew that Qin Shi Huang had offended the ruins of immortality and the dimensional world in order to seek immortality. They were the ones who attacked him. In fact, the ruins of immortality and the dimensional world were behind the changes of the dynasties of Wuxia in the future. However, Qin Shi Huang was not willing to be manipulated by the ruins of immortality and the dimensional world. He was not convinced, and today's Ying Su was not convinced either. Jiang Tian dared to challenge the stellar sky domain. Although it was not the strongest ruins of immortality, it was still a dimensional world. From this point, Ying Su approved of Jiang Tian. Kong Teichu is extremely arrogant and condescending. He even dared to offend the Holy See and the Brahmin. Naran Qinghe also sneered disdainfully. But in fact he is completely a frog at the bottom of the well. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. What now? Tianqing School was still crushed like a dog. They are panicking like a stray dog. Nalan Li also snorted and said disdainfully, "He doesn't even dare to come because he will only be cannon fodder if he comes." He was extremely happy. "Aren't you Kong Teichu arrogant? Yes, my Nalan family can't do anything to you, but the Holy See and the Brahmin can control you. Jiangtian, oh Jiangtian, why don't you come and see how your henchmen are being trampled?" Zhou Xian touched his chin and snorted. "Doesn't Kong Teichu want to be surrounded by enemies? He even rejected our reclusive royalty's help. Then let's fulfill his wish. Let's see how long he can last. If we continue to help him, won't we be cheap?" Li Guangkou also sneered and agreed. With Zhou Xian and Nalan Li fanning the flames, almost all the reclusive royalty abandoned Jiang Tian. The hidden royal family considered themselves to be the son of heaven. They thought highly of themselves and were extremely arrogant. Helping Jiang Tian was already lowering their own status. They thought that Jiang Tian would be grateful, but who knew that Jiang Tian didn't appreciate it at all. Instead he said that they were meddling in other people's business. How could they not be angry? "I don't care whether you fight or not. But the Wu family is going to fight." Lady Wu's eyes lit up. She waved her two swords and led Luo Fei and a group of female warriors to attack. Hey, stop. At this moment, a ray of light pierced through the sky and suddenly stopped. The martial demon lady did not release her blade and looked over with a frown. She saw a handsome young man in a white outfit standing in the air. He seemed to be walking on an invisible ladder. His strength was definitely beyond the immortal state or even higher. Lady Wu was startled. She didn't know whether this person was a friend or a foe. "Tianqing School is killing people. You people should stay away. Don't be scared." The young man was calm and composed as he spoke. "Fuck, I have become an outsider." Lady Wu landed on the ground and looked up at the young man. She was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She was a descendant of the reclusive royalty and had killed many people from the Holy See and the Brahmin. How could she be looked down upon? "Kongte." Zhou Xian saw Jiang Tian and his eyes narrowed. He then stepped forward and said sarcastically, "Are you blind? Don't you see that Saint Laurent has asked the true God's spirit to descend? Don't you see that the Crusade, the 6 great monasteries and the Brahmin army have defeated Tianqing School? Your Tianqing sect can't even withstand a single blow and is a disgrace. You still dare to spout such arrogant words at this moment. What true God's spirit? It's just an avatar of his divine soul." Jiang Tian landed on Qingsong Peak and said with a disdainful smile, "Even if his real body is here, I can kill him easily. Don't worry, Yi Tianren will kill them soon. 3,000 overlords, none of them will be left alive." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell into dead silence. Everyone looked at Jiang Tian as if they were looking at a madman. "The true God's spirit has descended. How could you still dare to speak such arrogant words when we are completely crushing your troops?" Ying Su looked at Jiang Tian in a daze and thought, "Is this guy as stupid as me?" Zhou Xian shook his head mockingly, as if he couldn't be bothered to explain anything to Jiang Tian. Li Guangkou also showed a disdainful look. Indeed, although Jiang Taichu was strong, he was still a commoner after all. He was not a disciple of a famous mountain or river, nor was he from a famous family. His knowledge was still too shallow. Perhaps he didn't even know what a true God's spirit was. Chapter 1002. This time the crusade and the 6 great monasteries had joined forces with the Brahmin army. There were 3,000 top powerhouses, and Saint Laurent had even invited a true God's spirit to possess him. His combat power was comparable to that of a holy master. The Tianqing school and the Wuxia formation were no match for them. Even with the reclusive royalty, it would be difficult for them to compete. However, Kang Taichu said that he would wipe them out. This was simply crazy to the point of no bounds. Perhaps this was what they meant by, the ignorant are fearless. So he's Kang Taichu. How arrogant. Lady Wu wrinkled her beautiful nose and said coquettishly, "Little brother, I'm helping you out of kindness. Don't be so ungrateful." She laughed so hard that the branches of the flowers trembled and the waves were dazzling. "Little brother, you're very handsome. Come to me. Let me check your body and I'll help you kill them." The descendant of Wu Zetian? She's indeed a beauty who brings disaster. Her demonic aura is overwhelming. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. He scanned with his divine sense and understood. However, Jiang Tian was too lazy to argue with her. His face was cold as he said, "Don't be so lame. All of you quickly retreat." "Kang Taichu, do you really have a way to deal with them?" The martial demon lady's face was filled with curiosity. "But your disciple has been beaten so badly. Why don't you do something? It's not time yet. Haste makes waste." Jiang Tian was calm and unruffled as he gazed at the battlefield. At this time, the powerhouses of the Holy See and the Brahmin were arrogant and had already chased after them. "Celestial Yi, with your insignificant cultivation, you still dare to act rashly. Do you think you can escape? Kneel and beg for mercy." "Ah, what bullshit Tianqing school. What Kang Taichu. Compared to our Holy See and Brahmin, they are just rubbish." Saint Laurent and the little guru of suffering flew into the sky like rainbows piercing through the sun. Many experts were full of murderous intent as they taunted them smugly. "Kill. Wipe them out. Only Kang Taichu is left. Kang Taichu is also trash. Kill Kang Taichu and occupy Tianqing school. The Holy See is the #1 orthodoxy in the world. Fuck you, the Brahmin is." Thousands of people from the Brahmin corps, the crusade and the ashram shouted angrily. They rode on their dharma artifacts, crossed the mountains and rivers and chased after Yi Tianren and the others. On the other hand, Yi Tianren and the others didn't seem to dare to resist at all. They threw away their armor and fled in panic. Kang Taichu, when you rejected me, did you think that you would be chased like a stray dog today?" Nailan Li also laughed smugly. He was instantly revived and said arrogantly, "Kneel down and beg for mercy. Hurry up and kneel and beg for mercy." If the reclusive imperial family and the dragon protector bloodline are in a good mood, we might help you fight the enemy. Kang Taichu, you are just a commoner. You have offended me many times before. Now that your life is at stake, you better apologize to me now. Jin Zishuan took a step forward and snorted coldly. "My Aizen-Joro family and the Holy See have some friendship. When the time comes, I will put in a good word for you. Maybe you will have a chance to live." In the Qing dynasty, Tang Ruang, a missionary of the Holy See, had saved Xiao Zhuang's life. When Kangxi saw him, he had to greet him as a disciple. In addition, famous missionaries such as Lang Shining had a good relationship with the royal family of the Qing dynasty. In fact, Zhou Xian was the only one who could talk to the Holy See. Other than that, the royal family had no relationship with them. "Zhou Xian, you better kneel down and beg for mercy now, or I will kill you later." A cold, killing intent flashed in Jiang Tian's eyes, and the corners of his mouth curved into a cruel smile. 2 days ago, Jiang Tian had let him go for fear that he would agitate Qing'er. But in fact, Jiang Tian still wanted to kill him. Now that he saw him, how could he let him go? "Kang Taichu, in my eyes, you are just an ant. Insect. You are so presumptuous. Ridiculous. You overestimate yourself. Do you know that now I am your big savior, your only savior?" Zhou Xian was so angry that his whole body trembled. His face was livid. He flung his sleeves and shouted coldly. You will cry very loudly in a moment. They killed your disciple and will kill you immediately. You don't know what is good for you. Mortals are mortals after all. You are so short-sighted that you don't know the principle of hiding your strength and uniting other forces. Naranqinghe's face was full of disdain. She shook her head and snorted softly. Originally she was very envious and jealous of Zhou Xian, but at this moment she even sympathized with Zhou Xian. Such an idiotic husband had caused so much trouble. He had given up so many chances to save himself, and now he was doomed eternally. Jiang Tian would die, Tianqing school would be destroyed, and Zhou Xian would become a widow. No, she would even be killed by the Holy See. Oh my God. Are Tianqing school and Huaxiaolong formation a bunch of idiots? How did they get into the gourd cave? Suddenly Nalan Li burst into laughter. His face was full of sarcasm. Everyone's face also changed. They looked at Yi Tianren and the others in disbelief as if they were looking at a bunch of idiots. This gourd cave is like a gourd. Once someone blocks the entrance they can't get out. Zhu Xiaoqian took out the battle map and said mockingly, Tianqing School's Heavenly Strategy Unit is said to be a godlike strategist. In my opinion they are still lacking. They should read more about the art of war. A bunch of idiots. Only an idiot like Kong Teichu would teach such idiots. Zhou Xian sneered and shook his head disdainfully. Many members of the royal family shook their heads and sneered. They were gloating over Qin Xiaobei's misfortune. Kong Teichu, aren't you going to ask them to come back? Lady Wu was the only one who looked worried. She stomped her foot and said, if we wait any longer we will all be killed. Don't worry. They are the ones who will be killed. Jiang Tian's expression was calm and unhurried. You are too arrogant. Lady Wu, who had always supported and respected Jiang Tian, could not stand Jiang Tian. She was very disappointed in him. Qin Xiaobei had an earth-level deity, but the other side had 2 half-step sacred venerables, and they had even used the divine spell to summon the true god's spirit. Now they were in a passive position. They were like turtles in a jar, surrounded and attacked. However, as their master and sect master, Jiang Tian actually stood by and watched as their disciples died. Such a harsh and merciless person truly caused her to be extremely disappointed in Jiang Tian. Sush. Yi Tianren and the others entered the gourd cave. Saint Laurent, the little guru of suffering, and the others followed closely behind. Heretics, come out on your knees. Kneel before the Pope and repent for 10 years and I will spare your lives. Blasphemers without faith, this time we, the crusade, will let you know who the #1 orthodoxy is. The Brahmin will crush you bunch of Huaxia people into pieces and turn you into puppets. They stood guard at the strategic location, searching and pushing forward. They shouted loudly as if Yi Tianren and the others were lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Everyone, you will all die here today. With a soft shout, Celestial Yi and the others suddenly reappeared. At this moment he was no longer panicking. He was confident that victory was in his hands, and he was proud that he had lured the enemies into a trap. Yi Tianren, little worm, don't be stubborn. Do you know that I am the spirit of a true god? Now that I have descended to the mortal world, killing you will be as easy as killing a chicken. St. Paul's vertical eye flickered as he spoke coldly. However, the voice did not belong to him. It was an unfamiliar voice. Surrender. I know that your master Kong Teichu is outside. If you surrender, I will not kill you. I will kill Kong Teichu immediately and you will lead Tianqing School in the future. How about that? Of course, Tianqing School will change its name. It will be called Tianqing Monastery. The voice was sonorous and majestic, like thunder from the 9th heaven. It was so loud that it made people's eardrums feel like they were about to burst. Their minds were spinning. Even the little guru of suffering could not withstand it. He was on the verge of collapse. At this moment, the spirit of a true god descended upon St. Paul. He was like the sun in the sky, emitting boundless holy light. The people around him could not help but want to kneel down. The little guru of suffering's eyes were cold. He thought quickly and summoned his spirit. It was clear that the true god of the Holy Sea's holy tomb had awakened. However, the true god of the Brahmin's death hill was not awakened. After killing Kong Teichu and crushing Tianqing School, the Holy See and the Brahmin would have to fight. When that time came, the Brahmin would be under pressure. Ready. Suddenly Yi Tianren gave an order. A few members of the Sky Troop tore off the camouflage cloth on a military truck, revealing a 5-meter-long black weapon that looked like a lotus flower. The medium-sized Kuelian was revealed today. Chapter 1003. A dozen elites of the Heavenly Army who had been trained by the Sidoni Academy of Sciences, the Artifact Refining Hall and the Kuelian Research Center, controlled the devices and shouted, "Furnace check normal. No cracks. Explosive crystals check normal. Normal combustion. Array check normal. No cracks. Foundation check normal. Cannon check normal." Voices sounded one after another as they reported to Yi Tianren. The medium-sized Kuelian wasn't as intimidating as the giant Kuelian. Instead, it was delicate and beautiful. It didn't look like a weapon but an exquisite piece of art. As the Kuelian operated, the metal petals opened and revealed the honeycomb-like stamen. What's that? Cannons? Or missiles? The leaders of the Crusaders laughed sinisterly. Their eyes were filled with mockery as if Heavenly Yi was a bunch of idiots. They were determined to win this battle. Saint Laurent was a bishop in the Privy Council who could summon the spirits of true gods. When a true god awakened, he would have at least 1/10 of the power of a true god. Not to mention Yi Tianren, cannons and missiles, even Kong Teichu and nuclear weapons might not be able to kill him. You've run out of tricks. You want to kill us with firearms? Don't you know we're all saints and sacred kings? You can't kill us unless you're a nuclear weapon. The disciples of the Brahmins also had mocking expressions on their faces. They approached slowly and mockingly, as if they were looking at a mouse struggling under the claws of a cat. Number 1 Kuelian Alchemy Furnace Normal. Firing at full power. Ready to fire. Please give your instructions. Number 2 Kuelian Alchemy Furnace Normal. Fire check. Number 3 Alchemy Furnace Normal. Firing at full power. Ready to fire. The members of the Heavenly Army roared. Their eyes were murderous, as if they were war generals ready to slaughter gods. Today I'll kill gods for the world to see. Yi Tianren sneered and waved his right hand. Fire. Immediately the pill furnaces were all fired up and the runes on their bases lit up. All the arrays were activated, and the violent energy from the exploding crystals surged. The massive cannon slowly rose into the air like a flower from hell. It aimed its stamen at the invaders, and a terrifying might burst forth, causing the space around it to warp and blur. Roar. It was as if 10,000 ghosts were howling and beasts were roaring. Beams of light tore through the sky, and the sky above the gourd cave shook violently, as if it was about to split open. The sky splitters whizzed out of the stamen and shot toward the Crusade and the Brahmin Divine Army. In the 1950s, when the Holy See and the U.S. military were fighting in the Mediterranean Sea, I once took a Patriot missile head-on. What was this small cannonball to him? Are you going to tickle me? A saint-level general of the Crusade sneered and rose into the air. He was tall and mighty, but his speed was extremely fast. He quickly rose to 3 times the speed of sound and threw a punch at a sky splitter. Bang! After a muffled sound, the general turned into a cloud of blood and disappeared in the blink of an eye. What? Kids run! St. Roland's eyelids twitched and he exclaimed, reminding everyone to retreat. At the same time, the vertical eye shot out beams of dazzling holy light toward the heaven splitter heavy cannons. But it was too late. On the sky splitter hammer heavy cannon, runes flickered and countless exploding crystals exploded under the effect of the array. It was as if a few suns had exploded in the sky, and the roar was earth-shattering. The violent lightning and pressure melted all the rocks in the valley within a 10-mile radius into magma, and the trees were instantly carbonized. Terrifying cracks appeared on the ground and scorched earth was everywhere. Bolts of lightning that were as thick as an arm or even a thigh covered an area of 5 to 6 kilometers and exploded in all directions, crushing and shattering the void. Bang! 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 The overlords exploded one after another under the great pressure and turned into a rain of flesh. The next moment, they were burned into ashes by the high temperature and lightning. Some of them turned into charcoal and exploded, instantly disappearing on the spot. Not even a trace of them was left. How is this possible? The little guru of suffering stepped in the air and retreated out of the valley as fast as a flash of light. He screamed as if he had seen a demon. Even though he was moving at 3 times the speed of sound, he was still affected by the shockwaves. His linen clothes were burnt to shreds and his skin and flesh were torn apart. His body was charred black and he kept coughing out blood. His internal organs were also shattered. The entire army was annihilated. There were 1,000 private soldiers of the Brahmin, all of whom were overlords above the immortal state and a few guardians at the mortal deity level. They were all killed without even having the chance to scream. We were set up by Kong Techu. Those bastards are really insidious. The deity possessed by Saint Laurent was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He wanted to tear Zhang Tian into pieces and burn his bones into ashes. The Crusaders and the 6 monasteries of the Holy See were also completely annihilated. Not a single one of them was left. This was the biggest loss the Holy See had suffered in the past 2,000 years. The deity possessed by Saint Laurent was heartbroken and his heart was bleeding. Despicable. Cough cough cough. Master Suffering looked at Zhang Tian and spat out blood as he cursed. Kong Techu, you're shameless. We've said that this is a battle between orthodoxies. We won't use firearms. How could you use modern weapons? You have an unfair advantage. Yi Tianren had already set up an ambush. The previous defeat was just a bait to lure the enemy in? What kind of weapon is that? The people of the reclusive royalty were dumbfounded. The crusade was annihilated. The 6 great monasteries were also annihilated. The Brahmin's private army was also annihilated. Only the 2 leaders of the army were left? What kind of weapon is that? Even a nuclear explosion wouldn't be as powerful as this. This is too terrifying. Thinking of this, everyone's scalp tingled and their hearts almost exploded. If it was used to deal with Wuxia's reclusive royalty, we would have been annihilated. Zhou Xian was covered in cold sweat and his face turned pale. So he was luring the enemy in. Lady Wu finally understood. Her eyes glittered as she looked at Zhang Tian in a new light. Not only was Zhang Tian powerful, but his cultivation was also deep. He was also very smart. Amazing. You have an unfair advantage? Zhang Tian looked at Saint Laurent and the Guru of Suffering and smiled. This is a Dharma artifact. Your alms bowls and crosses are Dharma artifacts. Mine is also a Dharma artifact. If you can use it, why can't I? You must have never seen such a powerful Dharma artifact, right? Well, the spirit possessed by Saint Laurent and the little Guru of Suffering were dumbfounded. Heavenly beings, take him down. Zhang Tian's face was calm. Boom. As soon as Zhang Tian finished speaking, 2 more sky splitters were fired. Sect Master Zhang, please show mercy. I'm willing. The little Guru of Suffering quickly retreated and begged. But it was too late. One of the sky splitters had already exploded. He didn't even last for a second before he was completely vaporized and disappeared from the world. Kong Techu, you're so fierce and evil. You're indeed an unparalleled demon. When I arrive in my true form, I'll tear you to pieces. The deity possessed by Saint Roland was scared out of his wits. He had been prepared for this, so he roared and turned into a beam of light. He traveled 10 kilometers in one step, surpassing 10 times the speed of sound, and pierced into the distant sky. But the sky splitters were Mach 12. They caught up with him in a blink and let out thousands of thunderbolts. Boom. As if a supernova had exploded, Saint Roland blossomed with holy light, illuminating everything within a radius of 30 miles. Every blade of grass, every tree, every mountain, and every rock in the surroundings were enveloped in a layer of holy and dazzling halo, revealing every detail. But the sacred light still couldn't stop the violent attack of the sky splitters. Saint Laurent's body was vaporized in a blink. Not even a trace of him was left. A true God descends and glorifies your body. Your body is eternal. Bah. Yi Tianren laughed heartily. Suddenly his expression changed. That spirit isn't dead yet. He's not dead yet. Everyone looked over in shock. The shadow of a spirit escaped from the endless sea of lightning and the violent energy turbulence and rose a few thousand meters into the sky. Kong Techu, you can't kill me. He had 10-meter-long wings of light. There was a divine disk behind his head and an evil vertical eye in the middle of his forehead. His body was surrounded by a purer power of light. He roared to the sky and was about to fly away. Is that the spirit of a true God? He can resist the sea of lightning. How terrifying. Ingsu, Lady Wu, Zhou Xian, Li Guangkou and the others were shocked and couldn't believe it. The so-called spirit of a true god also belonged to the category of soul energy. The soul energy of ghosts, Li Po and primordial spirit were all tangible but immaterial. They were extremely weak and would be destroyed by the wind or the sun. But this spirit of a true god was able to break through the lightning cannon fire within a few thousand meters. It was extremely powerful and terrifying. Just a divine soul avatar was already this powerful. Who knew how terrifying and powerful this true god's main body, Saint Adam, was? But at least they could conclude that if their reclusive royalty went up against him, they would be killed in a matter of minutes. They wouldn't even have the strength to challenge him. Ah, you're indeed a member of the light sacred clan from the depths of the universe. Jiang Tian sneered. But you're still too weak. You can't resist the sky splitters. Jiang Tian's eyes suddenly became cold. He grunted and said, Heavenly being, I don't think he's smooth enough. Try again. Chapter 1004. Yes, sir. Yi Tianren gave the order. Another sky splitter was shot over. Dazzling thunderbolts burst out, making people cry and their eyes hurt. The thunderbolts enveloped the true god hero spirit like a giant net that covered the sky. Ow, ow, ow. Cultivator, you damaged my divine soul. I won't let you go. I'll tear you into pieces. The true god hero spirit dashed left and right, twisting and turning into a ray of light that pierced through heaven and earth. Suddenly it rolled like a fireball. But in the end the thunderbolts were annihilated. All the divine souls were torn into pieces by the thunderbolts and completely disappeared. A touch of blue appeared in the sky. Everything was over. The whole place was dead silent. All the members of the reclusive royalty and the dragon protection sect felt their blood freeze. They were dumbfounded and speechless. The crusade, the 6 great monasteries and the disciples of the Brahmin who had wreaked havoc on the Lansong River battlefield for many days and defeated the reclusive royalty, a total of 3,000 people were annihilated just like that. And one of them was the clone of a true god. Were all these made by Kong Teichu? Lady Wu was also shocked. She looked at Jiang Tian's back in disbelief as if she had seen a true god. Originally she had always thought highly of Jiang Tian because she knew that Jiang Tian was powerful and had astonishing talent. But now she knew that she had seriously underestimated Jiang Tian. Not only was Jiang Tian's cultivation high, but his refining ability was also extraordinary. This was a weapon that could kill a true god. In fact, when she heard that Jiang Tian refused to cooperate with the reclusive royalty, she also thought that Jiang Tian was too arrogant and underestimating the enemy. But now she realized that they were really meddling in other people's business. Jiang Tian and the Tianqing school definitely had the strength to deal with the Holy See and the Brahmin. At this time Jiang Tian slowly turned around and glanced at the reclusive royalty coldly. Plop. Zhou Xian and Nalan Li couldn't take it anymore. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed like chickens pecking at rice. They kept quiet out of fear and didn't even dare to look into Jiang Tian's eyes. They were afraid that if they did, the heaven splitter would blow them away from this world. Jiang Tian had even wiped out the crusade, and even the clone of a true god had been destroyed. What else could he not kill? Pop. Jiang Tian raised his hand and pulled Zhou Xian over. He slapped Zhou Xian's face and said coldly, "Did you just ask me to apologize to you? Or?" Zhou Xian screamed miserably as he was sent flying dozens of meters away by Jiang Tian. His face, which had just healed, exploded once again. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere and teeth flew out, revealing his white cheekbones. Jiang Tian grabbed him again and grabbed his throat. He sneered and said, "I'm a commoner? Say something else." Cultivator, how dare you, let go of me. My Aizen-Joro family is under the command of the heavens. We have the Stellar Sky domain as our backer. Zhou Xian threatened. Ah, you're about to die and you still dare to threaten me. Jiang Tian laughed as he exerted force in his hand. Master Kong, I was wrong. You are the true dragon, the son of heaven. I'm a commoner. Give me a chance. Let me go this once. Zhou Xian had difficulty breathing. When he saw Jiang Tian's fierce gaze, he was really scared this time. He begged for mercy pitifully. Let you go this once? Didn't I give you a chance back in Wu Town? Jiang Tian laughed and was about to kill him. He's really going to kill Zhou Xian. Everyone shuddered. Their eyes were filled with fear as if they had seen a demon. Zhou Xian, Li Kuangkol, and the others were so scared that they stumbled backward. They were afraid that Jiang Tian would capture them. He's decisive and resolute. There's no hesitation at all. This is a real man. I'm afraid that the reclusive royalty will be subdued by him today and obey his orders. Lady Wu's beautiful eyes were filled with respect. She was so excited that her full chest was heaving up and down. Kongti. Only Ying Su's expression changed. He took a step forward and pointed his halberd at Jiang Tian. You're too arrogant. How dare you kill someone from the reclusive royalty? How dare you ignore me? Where do you think I am? Ying Su was the chief of the Reclusive Royalty Alliance. Many members of the Reclusive Royalty listened to him. Now that Jiang Tian had killed Zhou Xian, it was a slap in the face. Plang. Jiang Tian smashed Zhou Xian to the ground. Instantly his flesh was torn and blood flowed out. Ying Su, so what if I ignore you? He stretched out his hand and slammed it down heavily, covering the sky and covering the sun. Plang. Ying Su couldn't take it at all and was slapped to the ground. He knelt on the ground and roared at the sky, Kong Teichu, how dare you attack me? So what if I attack you? So what if I kill you? Jiang Tian looked at him disdainfully and sent him flying with a slap. Kong Te, are you targeting me? Ying Su rolled on the ground and roared. His eyes were red. He was the descendant of Qin Shi Huang. He had a noble bloodline and was also the chief of the Royal Alliance. He was supreme and no one dared to challenge him. His cultivation was strong and his talent was amazing. Now that he was slapped by Jiang Tian, he couldn't take this kind of humiliation. The others were silent and didn't dare to make a sound. Ying Su was being trampled on by Jiang Tian, as if Tyson was beating up a 3-year-old child. What right do you have to be targeted by me? Jiang Tian stepped on his chest and sneered. Don't you understand why I hit you? I don't. Ying Su's eyes were full of resentment. He gritted his teeth and shouted angrily, I'm fighting for Wuxia. What right do you have to humiliate me like this? Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium, let him go. He's also here to defend against the invasion of the Holy See and the Brahmin. The martial demon lady was pleading for mercy. Yeah. After all, Ying Su helped you before. Although no one dared to speak and some even trembled in fear, they were still a little angry in their hearts. No matter what, they were here to defend against the invasion and help Tianqing School. Do I need your help? Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and he shouted coldly. Do you think your reclusive royalty is very powerful? How many people have you killed? How many have I killed? As soon as these words came out, everyone's faces were filled with embarrassment. Jiang Tian was telling the truth. In this battle, Jiang Taichu had killed 3,000 experts. While they had fought bitterly for the past few days, yet they had only killed a few dozen people, which was not even a fraction of the total. How could they compare to Jiang Taichu? The entire reclusive royalty was not as good as Tianqing schools, nor was it as good as the massacre just now. We didn't make any contributions, but we did work hard. Lady Wu held back her embarrassment and defended herself weakly. Contributions? What contributions do you have? Jiang Tian scolded him to his face. Originally, Tianqing School brought the Quillian back to China to lure the enemy in and catch the turtle in a jar. Tianqing School and the Long Formation School showed weakness time and time again in order to lure them in. However, every time they were about to succeed, they were interrupted by you. You didn't listen to orders and fought on your own, affecting our plan. What contributions do you have? This. As soon as these words came out, Ying Su felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His body trembled and his face turned red with shame. Everyone's faces were full of shame and they were speechless. Indeed, on the battlefield they had never listened to Yi Tianren's orders and deployments. They had acted alone time and time again, and even mocked Tianqing School for being weak in Jiang Tian's incompetent teaching. But now they understood that the Tianqing School and the Long Formation School's defeat was deliberately staged. As soon as the Sky Splitter was used, 3,000 powerhouses were killed immediately. The martial demon Yang was immediately embarrassed. Everyone's face turned red as if blood was about to drip out. Do you know how many people died in Tianqing School because you didn't listen to advice? How many national elites sacrificed in the Long Formation School? How many reclusive royalty school lost because of you? Even if it wasn't 100, it was at least 80. Jiang Tian shouted sternly. Ying Su was actually trembling from Jiang Tian's scolding. Everyone's faces also turned pale and they trembled. At this time, a strong sense of regret surged up to the top of their heads. Their hearts were full of regret. Jiang Tian's announcement was issued a few days ago, and his attitude was very clear and firm. But at that time they thought that Jiang Tian was ungrateful and stubborn. They even thought that Jiang Tian wanted to compete with them for merits and benefits. If they had listened to Jiang Tian, perhaps these sacrifices would have been completely unnecessary. Jiang Tian said with a dignified look, "Didn't I ask Zhou Xian to inform you before? Didn't I say before? Do you think my words are nonsense? You've disrupted my plans time and time again. Do you want me to thank you? Yingsu, you're the commander of the reclusive royalty school, aren't you?" Jiang Tian looked down at Yingsu and shouted. "That's right, it's me." Yingsu straightened his neck and shouted. Smack. Jiang Tian slapped him in the face and sent him flying. He shouted angrily, "Back then your ancestors swept through the 6 countries and unified Wuxia. They were good at commanding troops, but you don't even know basic military knowledge. This is not a game, this is a battlefield. We are the main army. Don't you understand? I'm not your subordinate. I'm the supreme royal family. Why should I listen to you?" Yingsu struggled to get up, waved his halberd and shouted angrily, "From today onwards I, the reclusive royalty school, declare war on you, Kong Teichu." Chapter 1005. All of a sudden there was a dead silence. Everyone was shocked. Yingsu's declaration of war between the royal family and Tianqing school was no small matter. After all, he was the leader of the alliance and could represent the entire reclusive royalty. Reclusive royalty was not limited to those present. There were still some powerhouses and seniors who had not come out yet. Once the two sides started the war, the whole of Wuxia would be turned upside down and even the whole world would be in chaos. Kong Teichu, Yingsu, can't you both take a step back? Lady Wu's face was solemn. He was in a dilemma. She stopped Yingsu and tried to persuade him. "Isn't this making your friends suffer and your enemies happy? Besides, can you withstand Jiang Tian's Kuelian Dharma artifact?" Zhu Xian, Li Guangkol and the others were tense, ready to fight Jiang Tian at any time. Zhou Xian, Nailan Li and the others rolled their eyes and thought to themselves. Good. They are finally going to fight. At least I have a chance to escape. Maybe Kong Teichu will even die an unnatural death. Go away. Reclusive royalty is not to be humiliated. Kong Teichu, I'd like to see how strong you are today. Yingsu roared and pushed Lady Wu away. His halberd flew across the sky and pierced toward Jiang Tian. "You're too weak. Reclusive royalty is not to be humiliated? I'll humiliate you then." Jiang Tian's eyes were full of contempt. He flicked his finger and the light from his finger hit the halberd. Suddenly the halberd exploded and shattered into pieces. Yingsu flew back dozens of meters, blood spurting out of his mouth. His armor was broken. Everyone was deeply shocked again. Jiang Tian was too strong. He defeated Yingsu with one finger and even shattered the Ying family's ancestral Dharma artifact. "You're so strong." Yingsu could not believe it. His eyes were filled with shock. However, he immediately roared and rushed towards Jiang Tian. "But I refuse to accept this. I will kill you." Yingsu stopped. At this moment, a dignified shout was heard. A streak of black light tore through the air like a comet, traversing a distance of more than 10 kilometers in the blink of an eye and landing on the Deer Peak not far away. This person's aura burst forth, spanning across a distance of several thousand meters, pressing down on Yingsu's chest, subduing him. Only then did the crowd clearly see that it was actually an old man wearing a black robe and holding a walking stick. This old man had the skin of a chicken and the head of a crane. His teeth were missing and his mouth was shriveled. His back was hunched and he was leaning on a dragon-headed walking stick. It can't be him, right? Everyone suddenly thought of a person, and they couldn't help but feel their scalps go numb, and their hearts almost exploded. It's Ying Laozu. Even Yi Tianren, who had just walked out of the gourd cave, tensed up and his heart almost jumped out of his throat. Ying Laozu was the oldest person in the Ying family. No one knew how long his lifespan was. He was a living fossil and his strength was unfathomable. Reclusive royalty owners had to listen to his orders, and no one dared to disobey him. When Yi Tianren was in Hongmeng, several ancestral patriarchs in Hongmeng had a whole new level of respect for him, and they treated him with caution. One should know that the ancestral patriarchs in Hongmeng were all celestial immortals, and some of them had even surpassed celestial immortals. Even the Kunlun sect master during the Republic of China had to be courteous when Yingying Laozu was mentioned, and they did not dare to provoke him. Yi Tianren had even visited the Ying family in Tongguan and received guidance from them several times. Yingying Laozu's strength and cultivation were not to be underestimated. He could be considered Yi Tianren's senior. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Another two figures flashed through the sky and descended on Deer Peak, and they stood behind Yingying Laozu. One of them was an old man in a bright yellow robe with a large braid hanging behind his head. Behind him, there was a beautiful girl with an uneasy expression on her face. Shockingly, she was Jin Yuran, a descendant of the Aizen-Joro family that Jiang Tian had met in Sky Pass Valley. The old man was the Jin family's patriarch, Jin Zhou Xian's father, Jin Wanxiong. He had a solemn bearing, a gaze that was like lightning, and an aura that was as deep as the sea. Shockingly, he was an earthly immortal expert. Subsequently, royal qi surged in the sky, and auspicious light gushed out while a golden aura suffused the air. Numerous experts tore through the sky and arrived. Practically all the patriarchs of the various imperial families in Wuxia, including the Zhu family's patriarch Zhu Guanlan, and the Li family's patriarch Li Fanyu, had arrived. Nalan Bo was amongst them as well. There were even a few patriarchs and ancestor-level figures of the older generation that came out to hold down the fort. All of them possessed formidable strengths and respected statuses, and their cultivations were practically at the earthly immortal realm. Juniors like Ying Su couldn't compare to them at all. In terms of seniority and strength, a few of these experts were even able to crush Yi Tianren. This is Kong Teichu? He's actually so young. At this moment they looked at Jiang Tian with complicated expressions, and they were filled with doubt, bewilderment, shock, fear, hostility, probing. There were more or less all of these. Looks like Jin Zhou Xian and Ying Su have already gotten into an argument with Kong Teichu. This is going to be troublesome. Kong Teichu might have already defeated the Stellar Sky Domain. With such strength, how can our small Jin family afford to provoke him? On Deer Peak, Jin Wanxiong's heart was in a mess. His eyes were filled with panic and he was trembling. He looked at Nalan Bo, cupped his fists and said earnestly, "Brother Nalan, please go and meet Kong Teichu first and tell him that we are not targeting him. We have no hostility. Everyone please calm down. Don't go over rashly lest Kong Teichu misunderstands. Otherwise we will all be in trouble. Nalan Bo, go quickly. If a fight breaks out it will be a disaster." Many of the reclusive royalty seniors had fear in their eyes, and they urged him anxiously. If it was really as everyone had speculated in Wuxia and even in the entire world, who could be Kong Teichu's opponent? Even Yingying Laozu would find it difficult to deal with him. Only Yingying Laozu's eyes shone brightly. His face was gloomy and he did not say a word. No one knew what he was thinking, but he did not stop them. Yes. Seeing that Yingying Laozu did not stop them, Nalan Bo responded with a serious expression. He stepped into the air and flew towards Qingsong Peak where Jiang Tian and the others were. On Qingsong Peak, Lady Wu saw the arrival of the seniors from the royal family, and her heart tightened. She frowned and said softly, "Are they here to deal with Kong Teichu? We are doomed this time. Even a living fossil like Yingying Laozu has come. Let's see how long Kong Teichu can remain stubborn." This time the reclusive royalty has come in full force. "Kong Teichu, I don't believe that you can continue to be stubborn. You dared to attack Ying Su, you are in big trouble. I'm afraid that you will be crushed to pieces." Zhu Xiaochen, Li Guangkol, Jin Zhou Xian, and the others suddenly became bold and fearless. They laughed gloomily as if Jiang Tian was already a dead man. Yes, Jiang Tian's Kuelian was very powerful. They were afraid of Jiang Tian and did not dare to provoke him. However, now that even Yingying Laozu had come, everything was different. The reclusive royalty had greatly increased their chances of winning. These people were all scheming people. Although they were full of hostility towards Jiang Tian, they did not show it. They only looked down on Jiang Tian in their hearts. "Jiang Tian, now you know the power of the reclusive royalty, don't you? I don't know who gave you the confidence and courage to challenge the reclusive royalty." But Nalan Qinghe, whose face had turned deathly white from fright, wasn't so restrained. She instantly came back to life and jumped out, her face full of ridicule. Jiang Tian was too lazy to pay attention to her. He shook his head disdainfully. Are you not going to surrender now? Are you not going to repent? You just wanted to kill Zhou Xian and Ying Su. Nailan Qinghe taunted without knowing the difference between life and death. Qinghe, don't talk so much. Nailan Bo quickly flew over and tried to dissuade her. Then he looked at Jiang Tian apologetically and bowed deeply. Jiang Tian, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I didn't teach my son well. Ying Laozu wants to see you. I know. He did not expect the relationship between Jiang Tian and the family to be like this. Everyone of the Nailan family, on the night of the banquet, I said that I have been to the Stellar Sky Domain, killed hundreds of immortals, and became the ruler of the Stellar Sky Domain. I will give you 10 lives of glory and bring you to the dimensional world to become immortals and gods. Jiang Tian glanced at Nailan Qinghe and said lightly, if you apologize to me now and keep that secret, I will give you another chance for the sake of the old man. What I said before still counts. Haha, you are still so stubborn even when you are about to die. Kong Teichu, in terms of cultivation strength you may not be the best in the world, but in terms of bragging, you are definitely the best. I'm sincerely convinced. Nailan Li could not hold back his crazy laughter. He laughed like a pig. In fact, many people were laughing mockingly at this moment. Kong Teichu, are you crazy? You have been to the Stellar Sky Domain, killed hundreds of immortals and became the ruler of the Stellar Sky Domain? How is that possible? This is like a basketball enthusiast who can't even make a 3-step layup saying that he beat Kobe Bryant and Jordan last night. This is the biggest joke in the world. Kong Teichu, are you kidding? You said that you have been to the Heavenly Star Small World and obtained some bullshit Emperor's token. Nailan Qinghe moved lightly and approached Jiang Tian. She sneered proudly and said sarcastically, let me tell you, the Jin family and the Imperial Li family are the representatives of the Heavenly Star Small World. As the descendant of the Dragon Protector, I will meet the immortals of the Stellar Sky Domain in the future and even receive their blessings. In the future, the Nailan family will be in existence that you will not be able to reach. She looked down at Jiang Tian as if she was looking at an ant and mocked him as much as she could. Before this, you have no respect for your elders and offended the Nailan family time and time again. You even fought and humiliated us. Now you want us to keep your secret? Dream on. We will announce it to the world immediately. Now reclusive royalty experts have gathered to deal with you. I wonder if you regret it? Are you scared? Don't tremble. Chapter 1006. Clan Head Jin. Hurry up and kill Kong Teichu. Kong Teichu wanted to kill Zhou Xian just now. He wanted to kill Ying Su just now. How can the Ying family just stand by and do nothing? Ying Laozu do it. Nailan Li, Nailan Tu and the rest were like loyal dogs that had seen their masters. They rushed up and shouted at Jin Wanxiong and Ying Laozu, adding fuel to the fire. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, how can you be so confident that Ying Laozu is here to deal with me? How can you be so sure that I didn't take down the star dimension? In my opinion, they might be here to acknowledge me as their master. They're just my dogs. In fact, when he saw Jin Yuran appear, Jiang Tian guessed that the reclusive royalty had already analyzed that he had been to the Stellar Sky Domain. They were here to apologize and acknowledge him as their master. Kong Teichu, how dare you? The moment he said that, Li Kuangkol, Zhu Xiaochen, Zhou Xian and the rest could no longer sit still. They all shouted and scolded him. Even Lady Wu shook her head helplessly and sighed. Kong Teichu, how can you be so arrogant? How can you be so ignorant of the situation? Can't you see what's going on? Even Ying Laozu is here. Seeing that Nailan Qinghe had become the target of many experts of the reclusive royal family, Nailan Qinghe instantly became more confident. She was arrogant and despotic to the extreme. Nailan Bo couldn't stop her no matter how hard he tried. She shook off Nailan Bo's pull and strode forward. She pointed at Jiang Tian's nose and said in a mocking voice, Kong Teichu, how dare you attempt to kill Zhou Xian and Ying Su? How dare you challenge the authority of the reclusive royalty? Now you, Kong Teichu, are the enemy of the entire Wuxia reclusive royalty. You've brought disaster to the world and everyone has the right to punish you. No matter how strong Kong Teichu is, are you a match for Ying Laozu? Reclusive royalty and all the experts of the Dragon Guardian clan? If you have the guts, then let's fight. This woman was truly murderous. Originally, Zhang Tian only wanted to kill Zhou Xian, who was trying to snatch Sidoni's dojo. He also wanted to teach Xianxia a lesson. But when she talked about it, Zhang Tian became a villain who killed people without batting an eyelid. When Zhang Tian saw this, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. He sneered, "Alas, I've given you the last chance. I didn't expect. Well, this is good. In the future no one will say that I, Kong Teichu, am an ungrateful person." Zhang Tian was a righteous person. In the celestial realm, he had once helped that family become the emperor of a secular country with a bowl of porridge. They enjoyed 3,000 years of glory and glory. This time he had done everything he could for the Nalan family. At the last moment he still gave the Nalan family a chance. Kong Teichu, the reclusive royalty, has come out in full force. Why don't you surrender? Give up Sidoni's dojo and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, when the ancestors of the dimensional world descend in the future, killing you will be as easy as killing a chicken. That's right, Kong Teichu, a wise man submits to circumstances. You killed an important person in the stellar sky domain. Your crime is unforgivable and you will definitely die. But if you give up your dojo, we can still help you to make peace. Zhu Xian, Li Guangkol, and the rest of the younger generation of the royal family's descendants. Some threatened, some persuaded, and some looked at Zhang Tian mockingly. Who else? Who else wants to take over my dojo? Stand out together. Zhang Tian said calmly. Kong Teichu, I don't accept this either. Give up Sidoni. At this time, another royal family's martial artist stood out. 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Do you think you are a match for us? A family head of the Dragon Protector family also stood out and looked at Zhang Tian disdainfully, provoking him with words. Finally, on Qingsong Peak, except for Lady Wu, almost all the royal family's members and the Dragon Protector family announced that they had broken ties with Kong Teichu. All of you shut up. Seeing this scene, Nalan Bo was so anxious that the veins on his forehead were popping out. He said loudly, Ying Laozu and the others came to seek an audience with Zhang Tian. They don't have the slightest hostility. At this time he was very anxious. Originally he wanted to make peace with them. However, these people from the hidden royal family were too arrogant. Before he could say anything, they had already attacked Zhang Tian, engaging in a battle of words. Nalan Bo, what's the meaning of this? Hearing this, everyone was stunned and couldn't come back to their senses. Royal family's leaders, come over quickly. I can't hold it back anymore. Nalan Bo was so anxious that he stomped his feet. Suddenly he shook his head and sighed, shouting loudly. Jin Yuran greets Master Kong. Please punish me, Master Kong. Hearing this, Jin Yuran was the first to rush over. When she got close, her eyes were filled with panic. She was so scared that she trembled and knelt on the ground. Jin Wanxiong, Ying Laozu and the other powerhouses also rushed over. Originally, she had already submitted to Zhang Tian, but she didn't tell the Jin family about this. That was because she also knew that the Aizen-Joro family was extremely arrogant and ambitious. If she had told them, the Aizen-Joro family would probably have immediately become enemies with Kong Teichu and Tianqing School and declared war on them. If that happened, the Aizen-Joro family would have been doomed. Moreover, the royal family was ruthless and cold. If she angered the higher-ups, she might even be executed. Therefore, after Jin Yuran returned from Tongtian Valley, she chose to go into seclusion to improve her cultivation and gain the right to speak in the family. In her opinion, Heavenly Star Small World was too strong. After Zhang Tian went in, it would probably take a few years or even decades before he had any hope of defeating Star World. It was even possible that Zhang Tian would die an unnatural death. If Zhang Tian died, then her attitude would also change. She would no longer be on Zhang Tian's side. Therefore, to Jin Yuran, her best choice was to hide everything and make up a story. She didn't dare to tell the truth and just waited for things to become clearer. However, when she came out of seclusion, she immediately heard the news of Kong Teichu's return. Jin Yuran was almost scared to death. Kong Teichu actually came back alive. Could it be that he had defeated Star Dimension? That was too unbelievable. She immediately went to see the old family head Jin Wanxiong, and Jin Wanxiong actually said that Zhou Xian wanted to force Zhang Tian to hand over Sidoni. Jin Yuran was so scared that her heart almost exploded. Zhou Xian was really courting death to a whole new level. After Jin Wanxiong heard Jin Yuran's story, he also realized the seriousness of the matter. If Jiang Tian really defeated Star Dimension, then Kong Teichu's strength would have to be re-evaluated. It was very likely that the entire reclusive royalty wouldn't be a match for him. Once they offended him, it would be a disaster. Therefore, Jin Wanxiong immediately contacted Yingying Laozu and gathered the elders of the various royal families to go to Lansong River to find Jiang Tian and stop the situation from worsening. At this moment, both sides were at daggers drawn, like fire and water, and Jin Xian was beaten to a pulp by Jiang Tian. Jin Yuran and Jin Wanxiong were filled with regret. Even though they rushed over, they were still a step too late. Narenqinghe didn't know about this. She even pulled Jin Yuran and shouted recklessly, "Jin Yuran, are you crazy? Why are you kneeling to a commoner? He's just a commoner. What's so great about him?" Now Yingying Laozu, the old family head, and many other royal family leaders are here. Isn't killing him as easy as killing a chicken? Narenqinghe, I beg you, shut up. Jin Yuran wanted nothing more than to sew her mouth shut. However, Narenqinghe was so proud that she didn't listen. She turned to Jiang Tian and roared, "Jiang Tian, to tell you the truth, the Jin family has been trying to kill you for a long time. This time they've turned out in full force. Just you wait for your death." "Bitch, shut your mouth." Jin Wanxiong was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He was furious and roared like thunder. He strode forward and slapped Narenqinghe's head. Kong Teichu was an existence that could crush Heavenly Star Small World. Aren't you pushing the Jin family into a fire pit? Don't you think that the Jin family hasn't had enough deaths? Do you want to completely exterminate the Jin family? Bang! Narenqinghe was only at the transcendent realm. How could she withstand the blow? She was sent flying, her head bleeding as she fell to the ground. "Old family head, why are you doing this? Why did you hit my beloved daughter? We are loyal to the Nalen family." Nalen Li was dumbfounded. His eyes were filled with tears. He was almost going crazy. He beat his chest and stomped his feet, waving his arms and legs like a mad tiger. Slap. Jin Wanxiong slapped Nalen Li again, causing blood to spurt out of his nose. He was sent flying a few meters away like a rag doll. "Why did I hit you?" Jin Wanxiong kicked him in the chest and broke a few of his ribs. He shouted angrily, "You're so arrogant. Master Kong is not even afraid of Star World. He went to Stellar Sky Domain and returned safely. Yet you're fanning the flames and instigating Jin Xian to become enemies with Master Kong. What are your intentions?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. What? He went to Stellar Sky Domain? And he came back? When everyone heard this, it was as if they were struck by lightning. Their faces were full of disbelief. "Jin family head, what are you saying?" He. Yingsu was dumbfounded. She stared at Jiang Tian dumbfoundedly as if she had just met Jiang Tian. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.